Hi guys, had a bit of trouble going live. Took me 5 or 10 minutes to go live. Yeah, Diane, I had a bit of trouble going live. That's why I'm a bit late. Good to see you.
Here, investor, you probably think this guy. But SIFE investors are different because SIFE.
All right, we're into a tangent with 3 lines in. I went to the store. Hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of Decoding the Unknown. As always, hello there, I'm your host Simon. What happens here is one of my wonderful script writers, in this case Katie, has written me a script. The format, of course, if you're an old hand listening or watching Decoding the Unknown, you'll know that I've never read this before. This is brand new. We're going to learn about it together. Katie has written me a script all about the Philadelphia experiments, which I believe it's got something to do with like a disappearing ship, and then there was also a movie. I mean, Casey has even titled it The Cloaked Ship That Never Was, so I get the feeling this could be one of those urban legendy ones. So let's just jump in and find out, shall we? Now, editors. I used to say Jen edits these videos.
Hey, good to see you.
But there's also a new editor called
How's Davey going?
And I don't know who it will be assigned to. So I don't know who to thank in advance, but you'll see it in the credits. So, yeah, sorry about that, guys. That's how it happens, I guess. Just needed more people. The Philadelphia experiments either involve secret military experiments, cover-ups at the highest level, teleportation and time travel, or it was that time the cream cheese company decided to unleash pumpkin spice flavour on the world. Good Lord, they didn't. You know what I bought the other day? Sorry, we're into a tangent with 3 lines in. I went to the store and they had Philadelphia with Milka chocolate, which is this delicious, very milky, like, I'm not one of these fancy chocolate dealers, so I was like, oh no, I had it 85% cacao only and above. I'm like, who would eat that? It tastes like poison. I like just regular milk chocolate, and this Milka stuff is like the milkiest of milk chocolate. It's like Kinder chocolate. It's kind of for children, but it's so good. And they mixed it in Philadelphia cream cheese, and it's awesome. It tastes like a cheesecake. For the sake of this channel, I'm glad we're talking about the first one. Otherwise, it might be a rather short episode. Not with my tangents, Casey, it wouldn't be. A note. Hear ye, hear ye. Let's set out the format from the start. First off, in part 1, we're going to talk about the actual Philadelphia experiment and what happens there. In part 2, we're going to go into more recent history about the events and what else has come to light in the meantime. Then, depending on how parts 1 and 2 go, we may or may not go into part 3 and kind of rip it to pieces. Spoiler alert, there's definitely going to be a part 3. I'm holding off until then, but I can't promise that Simon won't. Oh, there is absolutely no way that I'm not ripping into this. Like, what did we mention at the beginning? Cover-ups, teleportation, time travel.
Diane, will you send me out on Skype, please? That looks really interesting.
Or secret military. Look, I mean, these things are real. I mean, the first 2, cover-ups at the highest level and military experiments, obviously teleportation and time travel. I mean, time travel's very real. We're all traveling forward in time at this very moment. But we're not traveling backwards in time. We're not pausing.
Oh, cool. Thanks, Di.
I mean, other than in the context of general relativity, which, well, none of us are going that fast, are we? So, yes, I'm going to rip into it. And Katie doesn't mean like 3 episodes, like individual YouTube videos or podcast episodes. It's going to be like all contained within this one. We're just calling them parts. No one was confused about that fact, boy.
Okay, I'm not liking the way this guy's going. It's not what I thought it'd be. So let's try this one. Just to give the outline. I'm definitely the before shot of them guys.
shady government programs, experiments gone wrong, reality-bending phenomena, and people disappearing. The Philadelphia experiment has everything you need to make a science fiction blockbuster, but some people claimed that it happened. That's right. Well, today we're going to try to figure that out. My name is Joey Contino from the Wobble Video Archive, and currently we're in the Philadelphia Naval Yard to go ahead and prove A, did this experiment take place, and B, did it actually work? Before we get started, make sure you subscribe, you turn on notifications, and you give this video a thumbs up. Let's get started. As the legend goes, the Philadelphia experiment was performed by the U.S. Navy in 1943 at the Philadelphia Naval Yard, which briefly went by the alias Project Rainbow, a chipper tone considering the dark side we're about to look at. At this time, the U.S. was just about to head into World War II, and the U.S. Navy was trying to turn the ship USS Eldridge invisible. Kind of how, like, the helicarrier in the Avengers goes incognito. But instead of doing that, the military ship just dematerialized, and then several minutes later, rematerialized. The crew on board apparently suffered long-term side effects, and some of the crazy stories of teleportation were thrown around too. It probably sounds insane, but there were grounds to conduct the experiment. Dr. Franklin Reno applied Einstein's unified field theory, which successfully demonstrated a connection between gravity and electromagnetism. According to the legend, their first test actually did manage to turn the ship almost invisible, leaving behind a wisp of green fog. When it reappeared, the crew complained of severe nausea, and some went insane. With the first attempt gone haywire, the Navy changed their plan from rendering the ship completely invisible to just making it invisible to radar. The equipment was recalibrated as such, and the second test began. But something went wrong. The Eldridge disappeared in a flash of blue light and mysteriously appeared in Norfolk, Virginia, which is over 200 miles away. Those on board SS Andrew Furuseth could see the ship plain as day before them, before it disappeared and returned back to Philadelphia.
Wow.
Some versions of the story say that the vessel had also gone approximately 10 minutes back in time. And when the ship came back, the crew members were fused to the bulkheads, suffered mental disorders, and some were uncontrollably phasing in and out of invisibility. It was also suggested that the surviving crew members were brainwashed into forgetting that the experiment ever happened at all. Probably a good thing in this case. Who knows what would have happened in the alternative dimension they traveled in when they were invisible. But the story doesn't end there. Yes, after 2 box attempts, the Navy decided to abandon the project, but the effects of the experiment have lasted much longer, long enough to have books written and movies made about them. Case in point, Carl Allen was one of the crew members on board the SS Andrew Furuseth, who witnessed the ship's disappearance. He regularly claimed, amongst other things, that he saw the crew members disappear during a bar fight. Now, there are no shortage of conspiracy theorists advocating that Allen was actually a witness. But some also say that he might have been an alien that was channeling information from our world. There is also a theory that the Navy was secretly working with aliens. But of course, these claims are way too outlandish, even for the U.S. military. Learning everything you just heard, could it all just be a lie? Edward Dudgeon, a crew member on the USS Edstrom, claimed that while the Navy was, yes, in fact, experimenting with invisibility in 1943, they were not trying to make ships disappear. It was an operation to make the ships invisible to magnetic torpedoes by degaussing them. This involves wrapping the vessel in large cables and sending high voltages through the wires to scramble the ship's magnetic signature. Dudgeon said that the operation involved contract workers too, and that there were merchant ships around. That means any passerby might have heard the Navy personnel saying something about making the ship invisible and completely misunderstood. That definitely makes more sense than a destroyer ship becoming invisible and teleporting 200 miles away. The truth is, the Eldridge and the Ekstrom were harbored together, and the crews often socialized on shore. As for the disappearing crewmen in the bar fight, well, there's a perfectly simple explanation. No, really, there is. The fight broke out when one sailor started bragging about all of the secret equipment he was working with and was told to be quiet. And since Dudgeon and all of his mates were minors at the time, the waitress snuck them out the back when the fight started and later denied knowing about them to the authorities. But wait.
Relieve muscle pain 2 times faster with Voltaren Emel Gel, only $25.99 at Chemist Warehouse.
New Rocky Road. Discover Commissar Mango Sweets.
Wait, how did so many people on board the U.S. Andrew Ferusev spot the ship in Virginia? According to Dudgeon, the ship
Okay, that's not taking it seriously.
Liquor was everywhere during Prohibition Philadelphia. Philadelphians loved.
That's got, I thought that had something to do with the ship, but it hasn't. It's got to do with drinking. Didn't know that. Okay. Hang on, I've got better ones than this. Come on.
Psychological combat techniques, as well as other exotic. They Never Ended, the Montauk Project by Darth Varda. I'm sure almost all of you have heard of the Montauk Project. If not, here's a briefer. Formed way back in the 80s, the project is a black operation entirely focused on developing and implementing psychological combat techniques, as well as other exotic experimentation. Think time travel, telekinesis, psychic abilities, cloning, paranormal and supernatural events, cryptids, immortality, alien life,
Welcome back, Ken.
non-human technology.
I'm just trying to look up more
dimensional
stuff.
Portals, the works. Some say that the project is the successor of the Philadelphia experiment, and they're not wrong. The crazier the phenomena, the more likely it is or was to be studied. Initially, the project only took place at Camp Hero, but eventually it was split into multiple branches, and the main facility moved about 18 miles to the north of Montauk Point on Plum Island. Officially, the project is said to have never existed at all, and unofficially, it's said to have ended, but neither are true. Now, there's a lot I can say about what I think or thought the project was, and there's a lot I can tell you about the things I saw, but I don't have much time, and I guess that's the best place to start. I was stationed at the main facility on, well, actually underneath Plum Island. At this facility, the one thing they were most eager to master was time, and there's a reason for this. A long time ago, or so it's told, there was a not-so-tiny accident at the facility over at Camp Hero. It involved one of the original overseers of the Montauk Project, who oversaw the study of time. He created an experiment that utilized reversed-engineered found technology. The technology ended up working, but not in a way they had previously calculated, and the results were problematic. What happened to the overseer and his team changed the way the entirety of the project operated. Restrictions were implemented, and the experiments were separated. And yet, despite this, the project was still not shut down. Instead, it was decided that the technology would simply be moved to a more secure location, and thus the main facility at Plum Island was born. I've heard many things about the technology used in the accident. That it was recovered from Roswell, or found in the ocean, or melted it out of ancient polar ice. I've heard it looks like a portal, a doorway, or a gate. One person told me it's basically one big rock with a human-sized hole in the center of it. Not spectacular by any means, but certainly mysterious and the source of much speculation. Ever since the day of the accident, this gate has been contained under 24-hour surveillance, deep, deep below the island. And if you ask me, it's almost like they're scared something will come out of it, rather than that someone will go in. And I don't blame them. Because last night, while I was mopping up some vomit and piss and blood, and nearly everyone else at the facility was engaged in another highly volatile experiment, there was a massive containment failure. Or, to be euphemistic, an accident. And it involved the gate. Surprise. Let me back up. I said I worked at the main facility, and that part is true. But as for me witnessing, and I mean really witnessing some things, well, that's a whole nother big can of worms. Why? Because I was part of the cleanup crew. Basically, a glorified janitor. I know. How could you possibly rely on the word of a person like me, a lowly, unimportant, and easily replaceable cog in the wheel? I'm part of the U.S. Chemical Corps. I was initially brought on for containment purposes, to stand guard over the things that they keep or kept there, but soon discovered that my duties were more akin to that of a janitor than anything else. I would spend hours a day cleaning up after the experiments, only ever seeing the aftermath of them. It wasn't pretty, or fun, or respectable, but at the end of the day, it pulled in a decent pay. And also, you shouldn't judge people based on their job. I'm just saying. Well, as a glorified, slightly resentful janitor, I took it upon myself to find out as much as I could about this incredibly secretive place that I cleaned. I hid my curiosity under the guise of extreme dullness and dimness. No one suspected I was capable of anything other than wiping blood and vomit off of floors and out of cages and chambers and observation tombs, so I played that to my advantage. As my grandmother used to say, when life gives you lemons, cut them in half and squeeze them in the eyes of those who gave them to you. And last night I was working in full gear down in sub-basement 3.
Hey, Phil,
the
good to
place
see
that
you,
keep the
mate.
Immortals. I guess the immortal in question was slowly going insane. It had gnawed at both wrists until it burst the veins and had to be euthanized. There was blood everywhere, and it stank. Unfortunately,
Yeah, I'm
I happened
going
to be
well,
the
Phil.
only
Hope you
janitor on
are
call
too,
that night.
brother.
So it was me and an escort of 2 guards. That's it. We were all wearing biohazard gear, but theirs were black and mine was white. I was inside the containment chamber, in one of the darkened corners, hidden behind the hefty observation tomb, while the other 2 men stood outside shooting the breeze. I didn't recognize their voices, so I wondered for a moment if they were new. They wouldn't last long. No one ever did here, but what they were saying was certainly interesting to listen to. And suddenly they stopped talking, and their voices became serious, professional. Didn't expect you here this late, ma'am. I peeked out from around the side of the tomb. It was the project lead, who I'll refer to as PL from now on. Her clothes were muddied, and her hair was wet, and she was wearing a red coat and these old-looking cowboy boots. PL never wore anything other than professional attire and her hazard gear. Behind her, following her silently, head hung low, was some random girl that I'd never seen before. She was wearing black leggings and a chunky sweater. Around her neck was a thick metal collar. It was blinking a blood-red light. I wondered for a moment if she was PL's daughter. Then I banished the thought from my mind before it got away from me. PL murmured something that I couldn't hear, and both guards laughed uncomfortably. One of them began to point back to me with his thumb, probably to tell PL why they were down here. But before he could make a full movement, PL pulled out a pistol and shot both him and the man standing next to him in the head. Quick as a flash, they slumped backwards before falling unceremoniously to the ground. I covered my mouth before I could make a sound, trying to make myself as small as possible against the corner and behind the tomb. The girl following PL didn't even flinch. I wondered if she was doped up. Maybe the collar was doing something. I don't know. PL kicked one of the guards in the foot like she was checking to see if he was dead. Satisfied, she murmured something and turned to leave. The girl looked up in my direction, and then she looked down again and followed PL to the door. I'm not sure if she saw me, but I didn't move for what felt like hours after they disappeared. My heart was pounding in my throat. Neither of the guards moved again. Finally, I decided that PL had left and that I should get myself out of there, so I crept out of the chamber and into the hallway. There were several more unmoving bodies littering the floor. I chanced to glance back over my shoulder and I saw it. An open door. It was the door that led down to the containment chamber that the gate was in. I hesitated, wondering why it was opened, before I realized that PL must have opened it. And, despite my fear, despite my doubt, and despite the death all around me, I was curious. So curious. I wanted to know what this was about. I wanted to know why PL had killed in cold blood, and if it was worth it. I wanted to know a lot of things, but most of all, I wanted to see the gate. I wanted to see if it was for real. I wanted to know if it could do the things that they said it could do. So I stepped through the open door and into a darkened room. The door swung shut behind me.
It's good to see
with a
Phillies in
resounding
hand.
boom. Before I could fully panic, my eyes adjusted to the darkness, and I saw a red button projected onto what looked like a wall made of obsidian. Carved near the top of the wall was an insignia, a lion wearing a crown, and a unicorn wearing a bejeweled necklace, holding up a shield split into quarters. Above the shield was an opened eye, with an iris in the shape of a many-pointed star. I stared at the carving for a moment before walking forward and pressing the projected button tentatively. My heart pounded multiple times a second as I waited. Silently, a thin beam of light appeared down the wall, and 2 doors slid open. It was an elevator. This time I didn't even hesitate. I stepped right in and watched the doors close with a hiss. A cool female voice rang out around me. Access to containment chamber, null. Has been restricted and decontamination deprogrammed. Would you like to proceed? I stammered out an affirmative. Acknowledged. Now leaving sub-basement 3. The elevator ride felt both a million years and less than a second, and sooner or later I was looking out into a short corridor that led to a cavernous space. Its size left me disorientated and apprehensive. It was definitely the chamber that held the found technology. A low light lit the area, and I blinked once, letting my eyes adjust, and then I saw it. It is real. The gate. It stood there, hulking and ominous, in the middle of the cavern, raised about a foot in the air on a dais made from bedrock. Carved around the entirety of the human-sized hole was a strange script that I couldn't quite make out. The hole itself allowed none of the dim light through. It was pitch black and visceral, like something was hiding inside it, just beyond its edges. PL was standing next to it, reaching up, and it was so surreal seeing her there, calm as a cucumber. She looked so normal. I was so entranced by the gate, I didn't even think to hide. PL looked over at me, and it was in that moment that I realized that something was wrong. Very, very wrong. Her eyes, normally a light sea green, were fully black. And she didn't look surprised or scared or satisfied to see me standing there, gaping at her. She looked eager. The girl didn't look up at all. Why, hello there, she said, lowering her arm. Do you know what assimilation means? I didn't respond, and she continued. How long have you been watching all of us? All of you? I asked. She laughed. I'm never alone now. What does that mean? They got you bugged? Who's the girl? Another laugh. You're very smart for a janitor. Cleaning up is how I make money. It's not who I am. What's going on? is the standard protocol. Too smart, she corrected. I'm glad you followed me. Glad? It might need two. She looked back at the gate. PL, ma'am, what are you talking about? What is going on? PL laughed, and then her voice changed. It sounded both high and low, like multiple people were speaking at the same time. I'm going to let them in. It was my turn to laugh. It was all so absurd. All this secret stuff, all the tests, all the deaths, everything. Finally, I said, I don't know what you mean by that, but all of this is absolutely crazy. Instead of responding, PL reached out towards the gate, hovering her hand just above the side of it like it was some long-lost lover. I was about to ask her what was going on again when she reached behind her back and pulled out her pistol and shot me in the shoulder. I yelled and sank low to the ground, trying not to panic, trying to stymie the blood flow as fast as possible. PL just snickered and grabbed the girl who was just standing there, silent and docile. She tugged the girl forward and towards the human-sized hole. Suddenly, there was yelling, and 3 guards in all-black tactical gear ran past me from the corridor that the elevator was in. All 3 were armed to the teeth. 2 of them had their weapons trained on PL, and one of them had what looked like a sword strapped to his back. I immediately praised the powers that be for their arrival, and thought, it took them long enough. PL glanced at them and made what can only be described as a noise of extreme frustration. It sounded like multiple people groaning at once. She turned towards the gate and shoved the girl with all of her strength at the gaping black hole in the center. And in that moment, I swear that time froze, and all 5 of us watched the girl and her trajectory. It looked like she was going to go straight through the human-sized hole, when suddenly she tripped and smashed her head first into the side of it, falling backwards onto the dais. The collar around her neck still blinked with the blood-red light. She didn't get up again. One of the guards roared and ran forward. It was the one with the sword. He was holding it double-fisted, left hand above the right hand, on the hilt. He scrambled back onto the dais without missing a beat, and he swung Link style around in a full circle like it was slightly too heavy for him, and he cut PL clean in half. It was insane. There was a moment of silence that lasted both no time at all and eternity. And then, as we watched, PL, well, there's no other way to say this, she melted. All the way from her head down to her boots, her skin bubbled up and burned off. Her blood evaporated, her bones blew away to dust, and what was left of her pulled down into 2 puddles of this black, gelatinous substance that instantly began to recombine into something horrific. A monster. A huge, horrific, blackened blob that rolled and rolled onto too many arms and legs and then faces. There were parts of people inside it, pushing out of it. They all looked like they were in the deep throes of passion or pain, and they were all moaning. It was high-pitched and low and completely terrible. I recognized one of the faces. It was PL. She was laughing or crying, or maybe both. It scared me so much that I didn't realize that I was screaming until I tripped backwards and nearly bit off the tip of my tongue. The monster made to move, but the guard swung at it again, cutting off multiple limbs and 2 faces in the process. Before he could get another swing out, it skittered with terrifying speed towards and then through the gate, instantly disappearing into the darkness. At the same time, an ear-splitting siren sounded. The script carved around the human-sized hole began to glow this blue, purple, brilliant color, and the ground beneath us started to shiver and shake. The bedrock crumbled, sending the gate listing dangerously towards the corridor with the elevator.
Wow.
A stone fell from above, and then another, and another. I screamed again, sending a gush of blood down my chin. A bubble of blackness formed around the human-shaped hole and burst, sending bits of black goo cascading around us, revealing what I can only describe as a giant eye. It was bright blue. The pupil dilated and then locked onto us. One of the guards fired all 6 rounds of what looked like a Mossberg 500, but they weren't normal slugs. They were way too bright and way too loud. The sound of them echoed over the siren, and I blinked. blinded by the sudden exposure. The eye blinked too, totally unscathed. And then it turned bright red. The guard with the Mossberg turned to the other two and yelled something. And despite their mask, despite the siren, and the stones and the giant eye, I could vaguely make out what they were saying. It sounded like they were arguing about whether or not to destroy the gate. One of them said that they had to. The other one said that it was too late. And the third one asked to get out of there. And then they pointed over to the girl. The guard with the sword looked down at her, then handed it over to one of the other guards. He bent down and picked her up, not princess style, but over his shoulder like a soldier or a sack of potatoes. And I know he was wearing a mask, but I swear he was crying as he carried her past. The guard, now holding the sword, slung the Mossberg onto his back and swiftly followed. The last guard, though, stopped and made his way right towards me, ignoring the sirens and ignoring the thing staring straight at us. He bent low to my head so that I could hear him over the sound of the siren. "You okay, mate?" he said in a slight British accent. I looked up at him. I could barely make out the color of his eyes behind the mask. Muddied green. I opened my mouth, and a spout of blood poured out, so I shook my head instead. He nodded then and helped me up and back over to the room where the elevator was. The two other guards were waiting inside. "What are we going to do with him?" the guard, now holding the sword, nodded in my direction. "Nothing," the one who had helped me up replied. He was still bracing me, making sure that I didn't fall. "But I'm not leaving him down there." "What about that rock? What about that thing? Why didn't you let me blow it up?" The guard next to me sighed loud enough for me to hear it, through his gas mask, but didn't respond. I glanced up at him, and then over at the other two guards. Obviously, I couldn't tell much about them through the gear, but the one holding the girl seemed to still be crying. He hadn't said a single word since picking her up. The guard awkwardly holding the sword seemed skittish. The sword he was holding was bright silver and seemed to glow. The same strange script carved into the gate was engraved on the center of the blade, but I couldn't read it. We arrived moments later at Sub-Basement 3. The cool female voice of the elevator warned us again about the lack of a decontamination process. I watched the guard who helped me place several blocks of C4 into the elevator before ordering it to go back down. We didn't wait to watch what happened. The basement was deserted, but the alarm was as loud as ever. We made our way up and up and up until we reached the ground floor. It was utter chaos, and the three guards, the girl and I, slipped in unnoticed. The remaining staff in the facility were rushing to gather data and secure experiments and subjects for transportation. The British guard immediately handed me off to a scientist, telling her I was in dire need of medical attention and that the gate was compromised. He leaned over to me and said 4 words just loud enough so that I could hear. I turned to reply, but he, the 2 other guards, and the girl had already disappeared into the crowd. I never saw any of them again. The 4 words were, "Do what they say." In the hours that followed the containment failure, all staff, subjects, and experiments were taken into a secure location for decontamination and processing. Some of us were released. Others were forced to stay for extra processing. I was one of the lucky ones, if you could call it that. Before I was released, I was forced against my will to sign a non-disclosure agreement. And that was their first mistake, letting me go. Because honestly, if they decide to liquidate me, then so be it. If I accidentally die in my sleep or overdose or suffer a massive heart attack, or they somehow black me into doing it myself, so be it. I'm not afraid of them. What I am afraid of is that thing. I'm afraid of what will happen to the world if all this shadowy business is allowed to continue. I don't want to do what they say, and that was their second mistake. Trusting me. I guess this is my way of warning you all. There are things out there, things we don't understand, things that we can't explain, hiding in darkness and hidden by darkness. What we see in our everyday lives.
Photos, and a girl comes in who's also a photographer, and she's like, "Oh, you developing photos? Like, I'm going to develop mine too." And she,
Do you need a new fridge or oven?
A washer or a dryer?
Right now at Bingley, receive a bonus Woolworths.
and she notices the
No,
photo.
it's
Guys, I'm trying to find stuff on the Montauk chair and the Philadelphia experiment. There's not much out there now. There used to be. So I've got on this channel, Montauk Project, Stranger Than Fiction, but the channel's called Channeling Spirits. We're not into the channeling spirits, so just ignore that. If they start channeling spirits, I'll certainly jump off. But if they just talk about the Montauk chair, it might be worth listening to. Don't worry, they start trying to channel spirits, we're straight off. Okay.
What happened to you? I don't remember.
Do not adjust your television. What you are about to experience is stranger than fiction.
Like I said, guys, ignore the channeling spirits title. If they start trying to do that, I'm bailing out, so don't worry.
Hey there, strangers, and welcome to Stranger Than Fiction. I am your co-host, Devin.
Hi, I'm Heidi.
And you are joining us as we explore episode 3 of Stranger Things Season 1 called Holly Jolly.
Oh.
Yeah, a little double entendre
Clever.
with Holly and, yeah, the Christmas lights. So if you are new to our podcast, one, we are the duo behind the YouTube channel Channeling Spirits, where we explore all things spooky and supernatural, but we also have been covering the first season of Stranger Things, going into the real-life inspiration
In our podcast.
So we are on episode 3. Last episode, we did a brief little detour, and we did our top 10 scariest films, but now we are back checking out episode 3, and I did want to just do...
See, Stranger Things on Netflix was inspired by the Montauk chair. That's what he's saying.
Like a brief little aside. So on episode 19, I believe, maybe it was 18, we were talking about Lonnie Byers, the father of Will and Jonathan, and that actor who is Ross Partridge. And we were talking about how in The Lost World, he plays a character called Curious Man, and we were curious on who that was. Since we recorded that, we actually happened to watch The Lost World.
Not like just coincidentally, because that's my favorite of the Jurassic Parks.
Yeah, so we just so happened to see that he plays on the subway with Ian Malcolm. There is a man who looks like Bender to me.
Yeah.
Like he looks like he's dressed exactly like Bender from Breakfast Club, not Futurama.
Sure, baby, I know it.
Yeah. And I guess he's curious.
Okay, this is talking about the TV show. I didn't know that. Okay, Skinwalker Ranch. Where is it? Oh, it didn't load. Hang on. Ah, there it is. Oh, it's an ad, that's why it didn't load.
Your truck has something very...
Oh, come on. I watched a bit of this. This is interesting.
And you guys have had issues with trespassers then, right? Everybody trying to...
Yeah, Hannah, apparently it's based on the experiments of the Montauk chair, because we all know they use kids in the Montauk chair.
Get over and get a view. Everybody's been trying to get to the ranch to take a look. It's completely landlocked by private or tribal. Okay. There's no way to get to it publicly. Nobody comes through this place either. So I don't know where the lights was coming from.
So you heard it here first. They're going to be future RVers.
It is crazy though how everybody across the United States and Europe and everywhere else think that they know exactly how to get to Skinwalker Ranch when it's completely landlocked. And I grew up here.
They're just scary. They need to stay out on their side of the fence.
We actually live on that Skinwalker Ranch though.
Have you ever?
We have. We've got some cool stories.
Bigger than humans, 2 big ones, 1 smaller one. Dark color. I don't know what it was. They don't know what it was.
Don't record that.
Guess where we are? We're at
Skinwalker Ranch. What is Skinwalker Ranch? And why is it the most studied paranormal spot in the entire country? Or perhaps the world?
I don't know if you've watched that show or not, but it's kind of a big hit. We're on season 2 currently right now. And we just happened to take a detour up here.
Yeah.
On our way through Utah. This is the secret.
Here we are.
Right here. What is Skinwalker Ranch? We'll have to back up. It started way back with a curse in 1860 when a treaty between the Navajo and the...
Which I didn't know that. It started from a curse in 1860. That's interesting.
Ute tribes in Utah ended. The Navajo supposedly cursed the land and, according to legend, released skinwalkers there. Can't go beyond this point.
No, just stop.
But we have got so much cool stuff for you in this video.
Yep. Even if you're a fan of the show, we discovered and found out even more stories that have not been covered on the show. Plus, we got an exclusive interview with Candace and Tom, resident anthropologists and caretakers of Skinwalker Ranch.
You made a friend on Facebook that actually has a ranch right next
door
to the property. Yeah. Also got permission from another rancher. We got up on the mesa looking down.
The owner of the mesa let us go four-wheeling up there. And we've talked to some locals, which have shared their stories. And the ranch owners where we're staying have shared some of their stories and grew up here.
Right. What do the locals really think about Skinwalker Ranch?
This has been an experience. So
totally.
Stay tuned. Among the Navajo, skinwalkers are like werewolves, evil witches who can transform themselves into the creatures of their choosing, mostly into a large wolf-like beast. But the locals won't talk about it directly, fearing the curse.
The area is also known as UFO Alley due to the long 50-year history of odd events said to have taken place there. They've seen or investigated evidence of close to 100 different incidents that include vanishing and mutilated cattle, sightings of unidentified flying objects or orbs, large animals with piercing red eyes that they say were unscathed by bullets, and invisible objects emitting destructive magnetic fields and strange lights. Let us know what you think after watching this video. Look for some of the strange objects and lights in our footage. Do you know what it is?
And at the end of the video, we will let you know how you can camp here as well and get a tour right on the...
No, Han! The series on YouTube is by the History Channel, and I can't play that because I'll get a copyright. So I don't think this one's copyrighted. But the other one's 10 programs on the History Channel. I am going to watch it, actually, because it does look interesting.
Legally. So many people come here and trespass. Please don't do that. Make sure you subscribe as we visit more spooky places, haunted cities, haunted houses, and our RV all over the country. Would you like one of our special?
And the History Channel Skinwalker Ranch is on YouTube, so I'm going to watch that. I can't stream it because I'll get copyrighted because it's a History Channel.
Our UFO themed shirts, we made them just for Skinwalker Ranch fans. We'll have a link for those down below as well. And we are getting ready to go up the mesa. And we want you guys to come along with us and see if we can find anything interesting.
We are so happy that Stacy and Jody allowed us to stay here on their property. That's right next to the ranch.
With a view of the mesa. And they've got little baby goats and there's horses next door. It's just been such a treat.
And this awesome side-by-side that's going to get us up there.
Let's do it.
Right now.
Yeah.
Stacy was born and raised right here on the property next to the mesa on Skinwalker Ranch.
Stacy and Jody took us up on the mesa for a private tour with a view of Skinwalker Ranch.
Think you've got what it takes to ride to live? Every time you...
And you guys have had issues with trespassers then, right? Everybody trying to get over and get a view. Everybody's been trying to get to the ranch to take a look. It's completely landlocked by private or tribal.
Okay.
There's no way to get to it publicly. So right here, we're actually up on top of the mesa, still on private ground. We're a few hundred yards from the property line. There's a proposed oil well location right here, and it's still on the private landowner outside of the Skinwalker Ranch, but there isn't a proposed oil well. Every one of those stakes could be an oil well.
If all of these strange stories weren't enough, there are oil wells staked up there just a few hundred yards from the command center. So in theory, they could be drilling for oil right below the ranch. On top of everything else, there's oil here too.
Yeah, but the oil is it's probably 10 to 12,000 feet deep that they would have to drill for. Each well would be directional. They could drill in different directions. Part of them possibly going underneath the Skinwalker Ranch. If we travel any farther south, we would actually be on the property of Skinwalker Ranch. So we're going to have to stop right here just so that we're not trespassing.
Now, who originally owned the ranch? Well, the first owners of record in 1934, Kenneth and Edith Myers, and they had no reports of any strange activities.
Township 2 South, Township 3 South, the property line is right there. The date stamp on this is 1963. That's when they placed this survey marker.
Wow.
We can stay on this private property right here, and we'll get up on this rock, and I think we can see the command center from here.
Again, we were here legally on the Skinwalker Ranch Mesa with permission from the property owner. You can't just walk up here. It is land.
I bought a little portable stove with gas to go on it, because if the power goes down, it's no good having all this food if you can't cook it.
Locked. While we were up there, we stayed on the right side of the property line.
So they didn't see your helicopter pad down there.
Oh, wow.
Right there.
The main road coming in comes right down, and about halfway across, you can actually see the gate possibly in the trees. So the property line is on that east side, and it comes down the command center and the original homestead number 1.
One of the interesting things about the Secret of Skinwalker Ranch show is that they're always trying different experiments to see what will happen on the ranch. For example, in one episode, they shot huge lasers toward the mesa to see what would happen.
So up here is where they shine the lasers up here, is that right? Yeah, they was shining them from the south back up against the base of the mesa here. Okay. When they was doing their laser light show to see if they could pick up anything on the side of the mesa.
Oh, there's your video one, Di.
Got some footage of something unknown flying up here above the mesa, and strange lights.
And strange lights.
Strange lights,
Yeah.
yes. Rat's property is at the base of the hill down here. I've never witnessed anything myself. Right. But I'm not saying that there's nothing there or it's not real.
And how many years have you been here?
I basically grew up down where you guys are staying on our property. I grew up there, so.
In 1994, Terry and Gwen Sherman bought the property. They only owned it for 18 months because they experienced UFO sightings, crop circles, and bizarre cattle mutilations. These mutilations were done with surgical precision, and there was no blood evidence. Very bizarre. And maybe even more bizarre than that, there was a story about some bulls that were impossibly stacked together in a storage shed, and they were unconscious. There was physically no way they could have been put in there that way.
The cattle mutilations, I think that's probably definitely unexplainable. I have heard some stories from some other neighbors, basically right close to where we're at, because they was coming off the very top of the mesa, and they seen some sort of creatures on 2 legs running out through the flats, bigger than humans, 2 big ones, 1 smaller one, dark color. I don't know what it was. They don't know what it was. If you look back down towards the command center, there's a white container with a door opening on that. If you can zoom in on that, that is actually the container where Sherman's big bulls somehow got stuck inside it.
Yeah, they've even seen some phenomena during the day. They shot the rocket up. That's when they saw something. That was during the day, right?
They would have been looking off to the west.
All right, let's see that light. Just amazing, all of the different things here all coming together in one area.
Stacy's dad and uncle.
I'm surprised they can get so close to the ranch. I'm really surprised at that.
Used to walk by the ranch and were told to never be out there at night.
I have heard stories of possibly these small canyons down in here that you're not supposed to be in those after dark. It was actually my dad and his brothers. It was my uncle that was telling me the story a couple of years ago. I don't know if it's true or not, but when Myers owned the ranch, my dad and his brothers would come down and help him put up his hay, and then he would make sure that they was gone up over the hills back home before it got dark.
To solve a mystery for me.
Skinwalker footprint?
Plus, we got to look at the triangle on the ranch, which was an area for lots of additional experiments and investigations. You'll have to watch the series for more on that.
Let's go a little bit farther east, see if we can possibly get to where we could even see down into where Homestead 2 or 3 is even at. I don't know if we can, but let's go have a look.
Oh, perfect.
We're right on the property line.
Yeah, that's how I know where I'm at. Be able to not trespass. We're actually getting pretty close to being above Homestead number 3. We just can't actually see it. It's right down here in these trees below the rocks. So Homestead 3 is right down in the trees. Come right here. And we're the top of the power.
Oh, I see it. Oh, yeah.
Go over here and see one of the surveillance towers.
Sweet.
Look down there to the south, you can see it. So that's actually one of the surveillance towers that Robert Bigelow and his team had constructed back in the early 90s when they was doing research here.
Now, in 1996, Robert Bigelow purchased the property for $200,000, and he formed the National Institute for Discovery Science, also known as NIDS, to research the property and the strange events happening there. These studies were either kept secret or inconclusive, although several researchers on Bigelow's team claim to have witnessed paranormal activity.
The biochemists working with the Bigelow's National Institute for Discovery Science claimed to see a large humanoid creature spying on the research team from a tree. Yet their equipment would mysteriously malfunction at critical moments.
That's good. It takes gasoline or propane. That's actually ideal, isn't it?
There were even cases
Hey, Lynn, good to see you.
Of electronic equipment being physically mangled and shredded, and wires ripped out.
According to the New York Times, Bigelow sold Skinwalker Ranch to Adamantium Holdings in 2016 for $500,000, also owned by Brandon Fugal. Brandon Fugal and the History Channel, along with Prometheus Entertainment, are producing The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch. They're currently filming season 3. They brought together quite a team of researchers to try to get to the bottom of all of the strange happenings here at the ranch. We'll put a link down below where you can stream the first couple of seasons on Amazon. We recorded 2 whole nights of footage of the mesa. Can you see anything?
So we're going to set up a night lapse on a GoPro to basically watch the mesa. Maybe we see some stars, but it will run all night long.
If you have a home loan, it's time to ask, who should I bank with?
The next morning, Stacy and Jody told us about a friend that had a unique food truck selling shaved ice in town, and that he also might have some unique stories to share with us. So that's where we're headed next.
So, our friends that we're staying with said that this Piccadilly place, this cute little food truck, has something very unique.
Yeah, shaved ice
Like a snow cone.
with pickles on
Pickles. And apparently they have repeat customers, so we thought this might be a unique thing to try.
We could use a snack right now.
We're a little scared.
Hi there.
Hey, we are staying with Jody and Stacy.
Oh, perfect. I know them.
Yeah, they told us to come by here. They're like, okay, you gotta go try a snow cone.
Awesome.
And
Jade.
hi, Jade. Do you have anything interesting to share with us? We're all ears.
All right. Well, the Piccadilly is famous here in Fort Duchesne.
Oh.
It's the only one in Fort Duchesne. And we came up with that, so it is very unique. What we do is we have the shaved ice, and then you pick your flavors. We have pina colada, grape, raspberry, tiger's blood, and then we put the pickles on top of it, and we caramelize it with Kool-Aid. So it caramelizes the pickles. Oh, it's so good.
Oh my gosh, that sounds crazy. Would you guys try it? Let us know down in the comments.
Definitely, it is good. Let us hook one up for you and let you guys try it.
Sounds
What do you think? What is tiger?
Tiger blood.
Tiger blood is it's almost like a cherry and I would say strawberry and cherry together. It's a really good combination.
You don't have skinwalker blood?
We can come up with one. That would be
Can we,
great.
like, do an original?
Yes.
Okay, how about?
That would be great. Tiger blood and
Black cherry.
black cherry is a good combination.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Yes. Pickles. It's almost pickles and ice cream. Makes me wonder if a pregnant lady didn't come up with this in the middle of the night. Oh
Yeah,
my god.
it looks like gummy bears on there.
Oh, get asking the people that
Oh my
question.
goodness gracious.
Tiger's blood and black cherry mixed together.
Oh
With
my
pickle in the
gosh.
middle and Kool-Aid on the top. Black Kool-Aid and
That looks horrible. Yuck. That looks horrible.
Pop Rocks, Nerds, and Gummy Bears.
Oh my gosh, did you get all that?
I
That's
think so.
nuts. Better than tiger's blood, skinwalker blood. Wow. I just had a little taste and it's really surprisingly good. I'm giving you a bite right now. Oh, this is awesome. My mouth's all tingly. This is awesome. Surprisingly so good.
Wow, that is really good. Holy cow.
Oh man.
That was the bite. That was the epic bite.
That's crazy. Crazy. So this is one of a kind then. Your location.
It is. We actually live on that Skinwalker Ranch Road.
Okay.
Yeah.
Really?
Our house is the one that has the fence. The only fence
Oh.
on the south side of the road.
Really?
Yeah.
And
Interesting.
Skinwalker stories?
We've got some cool stories.
What?
Wow.
Can you come out and talk to us?
Some of the stories we're not allowed to talk about because they're
Really?
Yeah, they're like native stores, and we're not allowed to really talk about them. But, but there's some things that we can talk about. Yeah.
We won't do some things.
Yeah.
We don't want you sharing anything you don't feel comfortable with.
Right, right. Well, we always say. Our fence that we built, we got those. We bought them, and we got them from the gym the bleachers from the gym, way back when they used to have the gym and they built the gym. The wooden boards and everything else. Actually, these are them.
Oh, okay.
And so they tore those down and put new bleachers up. So we said, hey, let's get a couple of those and we'll build a fence with. So that's what we did. We built our fence with them. Well, anyway, you know how the story goes, but like in high school and everything else, everybody chews gum and sticks them underneath the bleachers and everything else. So we got those kind of boards. So we put the boards up as a fence. Next thing you know, it only took about a week, and all the gum was gone from the bleachers.
Get out.
So we said, where did the gum go? I know, I'm not going to eat it. I mean, they're years and years older than all hard. But when we went back over to that fence, there was footprints along that fence. Not just one, but a couple of them. Now, we killed all this and everything else. Now the ground is settled, but there was a track going on.
No way.
Who would be crazy enough to dig them off and start chewing them and everything else? And no one in their right mind would be doing that.
No.
But the paths were there, and they had there was hoof marks. There was three prints in there. We couldn't tell what they were, or because we've never seen them before, but they're all over that fence. Yeah, and our gum is gone.
3 claws. Right here.
Yeah.
Wow, you can see where the gum was.
Trying to scrape it off.
Yeah. And this one too, you can see this one too got scratched marks and
wow.
You see it's all scratched off. Yeah. It'll take you right to Skinwalker Ranch, the dead ends at Skinwalker.
So are you a believer?
I am a believer.
100%.
I am. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we see some eyes out there in the dark and everything else when we sit outside and talk. And
do you get freaked out?
No.
Do you get scared?
No.
At all?
No. Because if you show fear, you show any kind of weakness, they feed off of that. They feed off of it, and they will come closer and everything. So
you want high vibration of love.
Yes. Yeah.
They won't mess with you.
No.
I did that one.
Wow, that's interesting. They'll pick up on your fear.
The bed last night, so I was a little scared because we're staying on their property and we have our RV here. So I'm getting ready to go to bed. And I'm like, okay, love. Please don't abduct me tonight. Just trying to have that high vibration of yeah. And fear is a very low vibration.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they know that.
So, what about like alien stuff? What, you know anything about that?
We've seen some lights coming from the ground up, kind of like it's comparable to in Vegas where they have the pyramid, the bright light that goes up like that. We've seen a couple of those.
Really?
Yeah, we've seen a couple of those.
Okay.
And whatnot. So we can't explain what they are, but because we don't travel that much, like we'll just sit here at the house, look at that light over there. It's like then we're not gonna go chase it or anything like that. But there's orbs, I guess we'll call them the orbs, and we see them all the time.
Really?
Yeah.
I want to see one. Do you call them?
We don't. We just sit out there and they just come. We just see them.
I'm gonna come sit with you on your porch.
How big are they?
They're probably, gosh, because they come up over that mesa.
Yeah.
So they're probably like a football, maybe a basketball size that we see. There's smaller ones, but the ones that we see are like basketball ones.
So what are they?
We don't know, and we don't want to know. We just enjoy the light. Yeah, we don't even want to know. So they're blue. They're blue, but if you put them on like your iPhone or try to capture them, of course it's going to shrink and then they just disappear.
Really?
Recording.
So they're away trying to record them.
For 15 years now.
Oh wow, quite a while.
Yeah. Yeah, at least 4 or 5 years back, we started seeing more and more activity and everything else, and people coming and going. Visitors are still coming and going down that road just to go skinwalker.
But
it is. It's pretty cool.
The orbs and things you've seen since the beginning, or
The
just
orbs we
recently?
started seeing probably about 6 years ago. We started paying attention to them about 6 years ago. Yeah.
Secret government project?
What's that?
Secret government project.
I think so.
I
think so.
Whatever's going on. Wow. Well, this has been an extra treat today.
Good deal.
Yeah, thank you. Jay or Jake?
It's JMO.
JMO. Okay. So come and see JMO at Piccadilly. See you guys here.
What? Anna. Yeah, she made this beautiful piece of artwork.
It's delicious and unusual at the same
It
time.
is surprisingly delicious.
Listen to this.
Bob Rock.
Well, that was super cool. Getting some more stories about the weirdness going on in this area.
Yeah, he was full of some great information.
The orbs and the gum.
This will be interesting. Like
Yeah.
everything else has been since we've been here.
So we are going to actually head toward the front of the Skinwalker Ranch.
Yeah.
At least we can go to the front where there's a sign and that
Yeah.
kind of stuff and see what's there.
Let's do it.
All right.
You scared?
Do we need like a Skinwalker repellent? Like a Skinwalker off?
We just drank Skinwalker blood
Oh,
in
that's-
our snow cone.
Yeah,
so
is that like
it's like a cloak, if you will.
we're invisible.
We're wearing the Skinwalker blood cloak. People are digging here close to Skinwalker Ranch.
Yeah, look at this huge backhoe right here.
They're everywhere. What dragon would think of that? If you don't know who Dragon is, you need to watch Secret of Skinwalker Ranch.
Look where we're at.
Here we are. Oh, there's a stop sign. What does that mean?
Right, big stop sign, lots of no trespassing, no parking, and like these concrete sort of barriers right here, and it's the gates way back there,
Yeah.
so they don't even want you getting somewhat
Anywhere close to it. See any skinwalkers? Huh?
Right.
Catching anything? You seeing anything? UFO? Gold?
Right, I thought you looked familiar.
Yeah, we actually just discovered this show like a month ago, and just like binged the first season, and then we're staying with some friends over here next door, just Skinwalkers. So yeah.
But on a ranch?
So there's no conclusions then, huh?
No, right?
I know we need some answers.
We were just talking about this yesterday. We came home one night and there was an entire firefighter crew. They were up here putting the fire, or they're off for the day. We got home and there was like 20 firefighters. All these guys were like, "Oh, what is going on?" They were just hoping to see something.
Is there anything you can share that we can share that is okay for you to share on camera?
We got our first hummingbird here this summer.
Yay!
The hummingbirds at Clubbing.
Hot hummingbirds! Is there anything you can share off camera? I know. I understand. Totally respect that.
Hi, Eric.
Is Eric still out here, or is he coming?
He's remote. He comes and goes, but he's
Okay.
remotely on, and we'll probably potentially hear you're like, is that you guys? He's watching for sure.
Oh. Okay. Cool.
Hey, Ed. We're actually working on our little 1968 little trailer.
Nice. So you heard it here first. They're going to be future RVers.
Sounds like what you guys
Yeah.
You have been full time for 4 years, and you've been
7 years now.
Yeah, long time.
So it's work on the road.
Keep going. Yep.
Make a video or a few videos a week, and so
Yeah, it's not terrible.
no, it's not.
Really,
No, right? That's awesome. Isn't that great? Yeah, it's great. Yeah. That's
Conspiring
it.
for
Conspiring for you. Manifest whatever the hell you want. Do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Take care, guys.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Enjoy the journey.
Yes.
That was super cool. Meeting Thomas and Candace.
Yeah, from the show. I
From
think
the
he goes
show.
by Tom on the show.
Okay.
To not be confused with the
Thomas.
other Thomas.
Yeah. They were under
Lady.
strict. Yeah.
Yeah, they've got the non-disclosure
Yeah.
agreements, which
Yeah.
of course a show like this would.
Of course.
Find out how the intralogistics pioneers can help you make the most of your warehouse.
They're supposed to be going to interview someone about what they've seen.
That evening, we sat down
Yeah, I got to admit, I like a double quarter pounder McDonald's.
with Stacy and Jody to even hear more stories about the Skinwalker Ranch Mesa area.
It is crazy though how everybody across the United States and Europe and everywhere else think that they know exactly how to get to Skinwalker Ranch when it's completely landlocked. And I grew up here. I was born on this property right here, and so I kind of know where Skinwalker Ranch is at. So it's kind of funny that
It is really cool to get that close legally.
I think probably a fourth of the people in the Uinta Basin probably believe, at least somewhat believe, but I don't not believe. I just have a deal when we move down here. If they stay on their side of the fence, I'll stay on mine. So now for years, I've seen the little zombies crawling across the rocks out back, and yeah, so I don't know. Zombies,
Wow.
monsters, they're all in the same category, same exact category.
They're just scary, so
They're just scary.
They can stay away.
They need to stay out on their side of the fence.
In another bizarre story, Stacy's daughter Caitlin had a unique experience when she was young, staying right here next to the mesa.
And Caitlin is
Caitlin's my oldest daughter. My dad was watching TV, and Caitlin was on the couch, which was right by that window, and she was back and forth. And she
What, maybe 2 or 3?
was like three, maybe 4 years old, back and forth across the couch, jabbering. And my dad said that he could hear her actually like talking. She was old enough to talk a little bit. So while he was watching TV, finally he asked her. He said, "Caitlin, who are you talking to?" She just turned around and said, "Oh, one of my friends," talking. And pretty soon she turns around, looks at my dad, and says, "But they said they're not here to hurt anybody. They're okay." So
Wow.
yeah, that was kind of a freaky little story right there. But
Stacy's
G'day,
father
Miles. Good to
also
see you,
had a
mate.
weird experience right here at the Skinwalker Ranch Mesa.
my sister says that my dad had seen some stuff. They lived in just a single wide trailer when I was growing up, has a metal roof. And this was after I was already an adult, moved out. And my dad told me that there was something running across the top of his roof one night back and forth on that 65-foot trailer house.
Stacy's mom saw lights out by the mesa when no one was back there.
My mom called my phone, woke us up in the middle of the night, and asked me what I was doing out back. You know, we've got 20 acres. The back of our place is like another 300 yards back there. And she actually asked me what I was doing back there. And I said, back where, Mom? You know, and she had dementia, and I, you know, didn't really try to say that she didn't know what she was talking about, but, you know, I'm at home, Mom. And she said, no, there's lights out back. Isn't that you?
What are you doing?
What are you doing back there? No, Mom, I was sleeping. I was in bed. You know, I was on the phone, and I walked to the window, and I'm looking, and I can't see any lights because I can see the same thing that she can see out the back window.
She was seeing lights.
She was seeing lights, you know.
And that's right back looking at the mesa.
Yeah,
it's looking at basically the backside of the mesa from the Skinwalker Ranch. It's all private property. You was there yesterday. There is no other roads going in there, was there?
No.
So, I mean, it's not like anybody else could get in there.
And there's no way for anybody to drive back there.
Yeah,
I mean, unless you've got access to one of the gates, there's no way to drive back on.
Yeah, there's no way to drive back there onto that mesa. Nobody comes through this place either. So I don't know where the lights was coming from.
One phenomenon that the area is known for is portals. A portal is thought to be a doorway or a rift between two different realms or areas of existence. Witnesses have claimed to see various entities or creatures appear and disappear into these portals around the Skinwalker Ranch Mesa area.
Supposedly there is a portal on the property and another one in the area. They've mentioned seeing one on the show.
My Uncle Tom says there's a portal right here
on your property, right?
Yeah. He says it's on our property.
There are coyotes in the area and wild dogs. Could possibly explain the missing livestock. Mutilated livestock? Jody had lost one of her goats from the wild animals that got into their pens.
So a couple minutes ago, I heard some coyotes howling. We're actually going out to set up the GoPro, but since I heard the coyotes howling, I'm going to grab my AR-15. We're going to go out and see if we can see the coyotes, because we had some wild dogs get into the goats a few months ago. Wasn't a very good thing. Got some of the goats, so, you know.
Yeah, that was sad.
Kind of carry a rifle when we go out and about, just in case. Let's go get the GoPro set up, see what we see.
Sounds good. Thanks,
They're going out of the GoPro. I bet they see lights.
Stacy.
what's on in the warehouse. What's in store for us today, Grace? Oh, we've got a great range of healthcare for the whole.
Spooky light in the dark.
Wonder what that big red light is.
Right there.
And almost like on that one episode, season 1 of Skinwalker Ranch, huh? That's probably the flare at the compressor station out there for CH4 in the Walnut Field. And excess gas, maybe the compressors went down and they're not running, but there's still natural gas coming in. So instead of venting that to the atmosphere, they actually have a flare stack that's going to burn that, where it's not just being released into the atmosphere. You can see that glow from the fire. It's actually making the whole entire sky glow.
Yeah, that makes sense. But if you didn't know that, it looks kind of spooky out there.
If you didn't know that,
Yeah, that's weird. They smell like McDonald's.
My wife was telling you a few minutes ago about my
Most McDonald's taste like cardboard anyway.
mom seeing the lights was in between here and the Skinwalker Ranch.
And there was nothing.
And there's nothing in between us and the Skinwalker Ranch as far as oil well locations.
Right.
So, you know, there could be lights back there bouncing around. My wife says if Skinwalker Ranch is real, we're moving. But we're probably not. She likes her goats. Unless somebody wants to give us a bunch of money, then we might move.
Right. So we might put your contact information down below in the description.
Right.
If you're looking for a place right next to Skinwalker Ranch for the right dollar, you know,
it'd be a lot of dollars, not just one.
The right amount of money.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. You were talking about how the tribal leaders, a lot of them believe in this, but they don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
Even talking to is it Jamco or
Jamo,
right?
Jamo, yeah.
Jamo, he's like, well, you know, I'll tell you a few stories, but I can't tell you everything because, you know, it's just not. But I believe, but I can't tell you everything.
Yeah, I could probably see why they don't want to say anything. You know, the curse from the Navajos.
They brought the curse on.
Would put it to where it would follow them home.
Wow.
I see.
It would follow them home. It would follow them for years.
That's the belief then, is basically,
yeah,
we're not going to talk about it or share it because that would activate the curse.
It might be the chosen few that gets to see it. I don't think I'm part of that chosen few. I don't.
Maybe prefer not to be.
You know, and maybe lucky.
Right.
Might be one of the lucky few that hasn't been able to see anything. Do I think there's something there? Probably.
Probably. With everything going on, there must be something to explain all of it.
There's something. Yeah.
What do you guys think? Let us know down below in the comments.
Yeah.
What do you think of all this spooky stuff going on with the shows, the documentaries, and I mean all of the history here with the gold, and I mean just crazy, interesting area.
There's definitely something to the third dimension. I actually went for a drive tonight in the side-by-side. We just up on some other property looking out for some neighbors' cattle that they got up there. You know, they live a ways away, so I told them I'd go have a look, and actually seen another petroglyph up there tonight.
Oh,
There's actually a snake on a rock.
Interesting.
Which, if you've been watching Skinwalker Ranch series, that's
could mean a lot of things.
Could mean a lot of things. Guardian to the portals.
Right.
That's not too far from here, where I just seen that, and it's an actual petroglyph. It's not just water stains on a rock.
It's time to go get the GoPro that we had pointed at the mesa all night.
Can't wait to see what we got.
Yes, it was actually a clear night last night. We could see the stars.
Yeah.
So.
Are those tracks? Oh, maybe not. Yeah, hopefully we got some paranormal activity.
Right.
Some unusual, unexplained events.
Full night footage looking directly at the mesa over there and the sky above it.
Oh, it's a plane. Still up there, but I don't know what it is. And this is not everything. There are many other stories and theories about this area, but we encourage you to watch the show. We'll put a link down below to check it out on Amazon.
There is also a reservoir located next door to the mesa. It's called Bottle Hollow. It's a 420-acre man-made lake, and that was filled with fresh water in 1970 by the federal government.
In 1998, a police officer saw a large light plunge into the reservoir and then reemerge, flying off into the night sky. One night in 2002, 4 young men standing on the reservoir.
No way, Miles. It's licensed to sell human meat. How does that? Oh yeah, they are pushing cannibalism.
The shoreline saw a blue-white ball and.
Guys, I'll finish off with some Operation High Jump, the Antarctic expedition. See, I tried to make a stream about weird stuff.
The artificial lake. Another theory is that an asteroid impacted the area, creating the Uinta Basin and leaving unusual metals that are giving off the strange magnetic fields. Stacy and Jody have started a campground on their property, so you can have a chance to stay right next to the mesa and get a tour, actually on the mesa. We will put their contact information below so you can add it to your adventure list.
Make sure you subscribe as we visit more spooky places in our RV, haunted houses, towns, weird places all over the country. Would you like one of our specially themed alien or UFO shirts? We'll have a link down below so you can pick up one of those for yourself as well.
No, thank you. Don't want one of your shirts. I can get one off Paul Begley for $49. Okay. Come on. Okay, hang on. Oh, it didn't load. Hang on, guys. Did it load? Yes, it did. There it is. Oh, man. The remote needs new batteries.
Indicator seems normal, however. 0800 hours. Slight turbulence noted from easterly direction at altitude of 2321 feet. Correction to 1700 feet.
Oh, come on.
Admiral Richard Byrd was a highly regarded explorer, and in 1947 he headed the Operation High Jump down to Antarctica. And after he passed, his son found his diary and published it. And here is an excerpt from the diary itself. Flight log, Base Camp, Arctic, February 19th, 1947. 0600 hours. All preparations are complete for flight north, and we are airborne with full fuel tanks at 0610 hours. 0620 hours. Fuel mixture on starboard engine seems too rich. Adjustment made, and Pratt & Whitney's running smoothly. 0730 hours. Radio check with base camp. All is well, and radio reception is normal. 0740 hours. Note slight oil leak on starboard engine. Oil pressure indicator seems normal, however. 0800 hours. Slight turbulence noted from easterly direction at altitude of 2321 feet. Correction to 1700 feet. No further turbulence, but tailwind increases. Slight adjustment in throttle controls. Aircraft performing very well now. 0815 hours. Radio check with base camp. Situation normal. 0830 hours. Turbulence encountered again. Increased altitude to 2900 feet. Smooth flight conditions again. 0910 hours. Vast ice and snow below. Note coloration of yellowish nature and disperse in a linear pattern. Altering course for a better examination of this color pattern below. Note reddish or purple color also. Circle this area 2 full turns and return to assigned compass heading. Position check made again to base camp and relay information concerning coloration of the ice and snow below. 0910 hours. Both magnetic and gyro compasses beginning to gyrate and wobble. We are unable to hold our heading by instrumentation. Take bearing with the sun compass, yet all seems well. The controls are seemingly slow to respond and have sluggish quality, but there is no indication of icing.
He's always been an oddball.
Dave, he has never had a friend.
0915 hours. In the distance is what appears to be mountains. 0949 hours. 29 minutes elapsed flight time from the first sighting of the mountains. It is no illusion. There are mountains and consisting of a small range that I've never seen before. 0955 hours. Altitude changed to 2950 feet, encountering strong turbulence again. We are crossing over a small mountain range and still proceeding northward as best as can be ascertained. Beyond the mountain range is what appears to be a valley with a small river or stream running through the center portion. There should be no green valley below. Something is definitely wrong and abnormal here. We should be over ice and snow. To the port side are great forests growing on mountain slopes. Our navigation instruments are still spinning. 10:05. I alter altitude to 1400 feet and execute a sharp left turn to better examine the valley below. It is green, with either moss or type of tight-knit
Yeah, Admiral Byrd, he opened my eyes up, completely opened them up.
grass. The light here seems different. I cannot see the sun anymore. We make another left turn and we spot what seems to be large animal of some kind below. It appears to be an elephant. No, it looks more like a mammoth. This is incredible, yet there it is. Decrease altitude to 1.
Wow, he's seeing mammoths. Can you believe that?
1,000 feet and take binoculars to better examine the animal. It is confirmed. It is definitely a mammoth-like animal. Report this to base camp. 10:30 hours. Encountering more rolling green hills now. The external temperature indicator reads 74 degrees Fahrenheit. Continuing on our heading now. Navigation instruments seem normal now. I'm puzzled over the actions. Attempt to contact base camp. Radio is not functioning. 11:30 hours. Countryside below is more level and normal, if I may use that word. Ahead we spot what seems to be a city. This is impossible.
No way.
Aircraft seems light and oddly buoyant. The controls refuse to respond. My God. Off our port and starboard wings are a strange type of aircraft. They are closing rapidly alongside. They are disc-shaped and have a radiant quality to them. They are close enough now to see the markings
I've
on
never
them.
heard this so
It is a
complete.
type of swastika. This is fantastic. Where are we? What is happening? I tug at the controls again. They will not respond. We are caught in an invisible vice grip of some type. A radio crackles and voice comes through in English for what it perhaps is a slight Nordic or Germanic accent. The message is, "Welcome, Admiral, to our domain. We shall land you in exactly 7 minutes. Relax, Admiral. You're in good hands. I note the engines of our plane
I
have
gotta
stopped
feel good
running.
night, bro.
The aircraft is under some
God
strange
bless.
control and is now turning itself. The controls are useless. 11:40 hours. Another radio message received. We begin the landing process now, and in moments the plane shudders slightly and begins to descend, as though caught in some great unseen elevator. The downward motion is negligible, and we touch down with only a slight jolt. 11:45 hours. I'm making a hasty last entry in the flight log. Several men are approaching on foot toward our aircraft. They are tall with blonde hair. In the distance is a large, shimmering city, pulsating with rainbow hues of color. I do not know what is going to happen now, but I see no signs of weapons, and those approaching, I hear now a voice ordering me by name to open the cargo door. I comply. End log. From this point on, I write all the following events here from memory. It defies the imagination and would seem all but madness if it had not happened. The radio man and I are taken from the aircraft, and we are received in a most cordial manner. We were then boarded on a small platform-like conveyance with no wheels. It moves us towards the glowing of the city with great swiftness. As we approach, the city seems to be made of crystal material. Soon we arrive at a large building that is a type I have never seen before. It appears to be right out of the design board of Frank Lloyd Wright, or perhaps more correctly, out of a Buck Rogers setting. We are given some type of warm beverage which tasted like nothing I've ever savored before. It's delicious. After about 10 minutes, two of our wondrous...
I've never heard the details of this so detailed.
appearing hosts come to our quarters and announce that I am to accompany them. I have no choice but to comply. I leave my radio man behind, and we walk a short distance and enter what seems to be an elevator. We descend downward for some moments. The machine stops, and the door lifts silently upward. We proceed down a long hallway that is lit by rose-colored light and seems to be emanating from the walls themselves. One of the beings motions to us to stop before a great door. Over the door is an inscription that I cannot read. The great door slides noiselessly open, and I am beckoned to enter. One of my hosts speaks. Have no fear, Admiral. You are to have an audience with the Master. I bid you welcome to our domain, Admiral. I see a man with delicate features and with the etching of years upon his face. He is seated at a long table. He motions me to sit down in one of the chairs. After I am seated, he places his fingertips together and smiles. He speaks softly again and conveys the following. We have let you enter here because you are of noble character and well known on the surface world, Admiral. Surface world? I half gasp under my breath. Yes, the Master replies with a smile. You are in domain of the Ariani, the inner world of the earth. We shall not long delay your mission, and you will be safely escorted back to the surface and for a distance beyond. But now, Admiral, I shall tell you why you have been summoned here. Wow. Our interest rightly begins just after your race exploded the first atomic bombs over Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Japan. It was at that alarming time we sent our flying machines, the Flugelrods, to your surface world to investigate what your race had done. That is, of course, past history now, my dear Admiral, but I must continue on. You see, we have never interfered before in your race's wars and barbarity, but now we must, for you have learned to tamper with a certain power that is not for man, namely that of atomic energy. Our emissaries have already delivered messages to the powers of your world, and yet they do not heed. Now you have been chosen to be witness here that our world does exist. You see, our culture and science is many thousands of years beyond your race, Admiral. I interrupted. But what does this have to do with me, sir? The master's eyes seemed to penetrate deeply into my mind, and after studying me for a few moments, he replied, your race has now reached the point of no return, for there are those among you who would destroy your very world rather than relinquish the power as they know it. I nodded, and the master continued. In 1945 and afterward, we tried to contact your race, but our efforts were met with hostility. Our Flugelrods were fired upon. Yes, even pursued with malice and animosity by your fighter planes. So now, I say to you, my son, there is a great storm gathering in your world, a black fury that will not spend itself for many years. There will be no answers in your armies. There will be no safety in your science. It may rage on until every flower of your culture is trampled and all human things are leveled in vast chaos. Your recent war.
This guy, this is the one they all went to visit in 2016. And when Buzz Aldrin seen him, he had a heart attack and had to be medevaced out of Antarctica. And when interviewed, he said there's great evil in Antarctica. And what's the Bible say? Your heart will fail you when you meet these great evil.
It was only a prelude to what yet to come for your race. We here see it more clearly with each hour. Do you say I am mistaken? Then he gestured with a lovely, slender hand, a motion of peace, and our meeting was truly ended. Quickly, we walked back through the great door of the master's chamber and once again entered into the elevator. The door slid silently downward, and we were once going upward. One of my hosts spoke again. We must now make haste, Admiral, as the master desires to delay you no longer on your scheduled timetable, and you must return with this message to your race. I said nothing. All of this was almost beyond belief, and once again my thoughts were interrupted as we stopped. I entered the room and was again with my radio man. He had an anxious expression on his face. As I approached, I said, "It's all right, Howie. It's all right." The two beings motioned us toward the awaiting conveyance. We boarded and soon arrived back at the aircraft. The engines were idling and we were boarded immediately. The whole atmosphere seemed charged now with a certain air of urgency. After the cargo door was closed, the aircraft was immediately lifted by the unseen force until we reached an altitude of 2,700 feet. Two of the aircraft were alongside for some distance, guiding us on our return. I must state here, the airspeed indicator registered no reading, yet we were moving along at a very rapid rate. 2:15 hours, a radio message comes through. We are leaving you now, Admiral. Your controls are free. We watched for a moment as the Flugelrods disappeared into the pale blue sky. The aircraft suddenly felt as though caught in a sharp downdraft for a moment. We quickly recovered her control. We did not speak for some time. Each man has his thoughts. Entry and flight log continues. 2:20 hours. We are again over a vast area of ice and snow and approximately 20 minutes from base camp. We radio them. They respond. We report all conditions normal. Normal. Base camp expresses relief at our reestablished contact. We land smoothly at base camp. I have a mission. End log entries. March 11th, 1947. I have just attended a staff meeting at the Pentagon. I've stated fully my discovery and the message from the Master. All is duly recorded. The President has been advised. I am now detained for several hours. 6 hours, 39 minutes to be exact. I'm interviewed intently by top security forces and a medical team. It was an ordeal. I'm placed under strict control via the national security provisions to this United States of America. I am ordered to remain silent, regard to all that I have learned on the behalf of humanity. Incredible. I'm reminded that I'm a military man and must obey orders. December 30th, 1956. These last few years elapsed since 1947 have not been kind. I now make my final entry in this singular diary. In closing, I must state that I have faithfully kept this matter secret as directed all these years. It has been completely against my values of moral right. Now I seem to sense the long night coming on, and the secret will not die with me. But as all truth shall, it will triumph, and so it shall. This can be the only hope for mankind. I have seen the truth, and it has quickened my spirit and has set me free. I've done my duty towards the monstrous military-industrial complex. Now the long night begins to approach, but there shall be no end. Just as the long night of the Arctic ends, the brilliant sunshine of truth shall come again, and those who are of darkness shall fall in the light. For I have seen the land beyond the pole, that center of the great unknown. Admiral Richard Byrd, United States Navy, December 1956.
My friend in the back there and I. And so while they were showing us around, we managed to sneak off into other places. But this is where the great leaders actually meet after their decisions are made in the Senates and other places, and the real power is determined over here. So we took some pictures that were not part of the tour, and what do you see as you come in? There you see the sign of Anu as worn by Shamash and Marduk. This is in this lodge where the leadership of the United States meets. Now we're just going to go through, and you see its symbol over there, which is the symbol of power. Here's the Supreme Court of the United States. What is the symbol that you see on the wall over there? It's the exact same symbol. We are rulers over the powers of evil, and we will keep them in check. We will make laws, and we will make everybody subject to our laws. But the supreme leaders also have another criterion. They are in conflict with God and with the followers of God. And their intent eventually is always to get rid of Abel, or to get rid of the children of Israel, or to get rid of the Prince of Peace, or to get rid of those who followed the Prince of Peace, or to get rid of the remnant of the remnant. Do you see the picture throughout history? Is there any reason why it shouldn't repeat itself? So the sign of Anu is on the Supreme Court of the United States of America. Now I'll take you down into the places where they didn't take us. Welcome to the J. Edgar Hoover Room, dedicated to your law enforcement community. And then there's something written here which is hard to read unless you carefully look at it, so I wrote it out for you. The most effective weapon against crime is cooperation, the effort of all law enforcement agencies with the support and understanding of the American people. Who wields the sword? The United States of America. On behalf of whom? on behalf of the first beast. The secular power is subject to the spiritual power. FBI activities began under Mr. Hoover's era, and there are some of the examples. And just to make sure you know what went on with him, he must have been at least a 32-degree Freemason, because he's a Shriner and you have to be a 32-degree Freemason to be that, but he was probably 33. So there he is. It's interesting that he has the symbol of the moon and the star. We think it is Islam. It has nothing to do with it. It is the symbol of Isis and Horus. It is that symbol of power given by that first parent, given by Cain and his wife to their son, Enoch. And down through the line, through Masonry, according to Pike, who traces their history back to the power of Enoch to rule. Here he's shaking hands with the President of the United States, Eisenhower. Our new cities, are they builders of cities? Yes, very much so. Who's this gentleman? This is taken in that lodge, by the way, in that room. In that room, in that lodge. That's Billy Graham, shaking hands with Hoover. There he is with the Pope. And he declared the Pope to be the moral leader of the world. Is that Jehu bowing down? Yes or no? And here you have Norman Vincent Peale, 33-degree Freemason. Took this picture myself down there in the 33-degree Washington Lodge. This is the father of the modern mega church. This is the father of the modern methodology used in the church. Who's he subject to if Rome says that the temporal power is subject to the spiritual power, and that spiritual power resides in Rome? He's the father of the mega church movement. He was the mentor of Robert Schuller, who became the mentor of Hybels and of Rick Warren. And the whole plethora of modern theology comes out of this temple lodge. Here is Harry Truman, 33-degree Freemason, and there is the altar inside that shrine. Now, if you look at that altar, it's a replica of what?
The Black Cube of Mecca. I bet he says that.
It's a replica of the altar of offering that was used by the Hebrews.
No.
But on top of it is not only the Bible, but the Bhagavad Gita, the Tanakh, the Quran, and the Bible. What does that symbolize? That all religions will be fused into one. So is this children of obedience or children of disobedience? Is this a way to God of your own devising, or is it the way, the truth, and the life? Nobody comes to the Father except by me. Well, we can see that quite clearly. Alice A. Bailey, founders of Lucifer Trust, said, there will be no dissociation between the universal church, the sacred lodge of all true Masons, and the inner circle of the esoteric societies. In this way, the goals and the work of the United Nations will be solidified, and a new church of God, led by all the religions and by all the spiritual groups, shall put to an end the great heresy of separateness. So if the Bible says come out and be separate and have nothing to do with this kind of worship, they say the opposite. So these are rulers of evil. Another 33-degree Freemason, Senator Dole, and here you have Burke, showing that the military power is also under their control. This is all taken directly from the pictures hanging down there. And we also happened to step on the holy ground of Albert Pike's grave, and they were horrified. Oh, you're standing on holy ground. What's so holy about it? Pike is here. Unbelievable. Don't Einstein noted that the leading American players behind Reagan-Vatican conspiracy to a man were devout Roman Catholics, namely William Casey. Now, this book was written in 1971. This is Rulers of Evil. I just want you to note the names and see where these people, or some of them, are today. William Casey was then, at that time, director of the CIA, Richard Allen, National Security Advisor, Andrew Hayes, Secretary of State, Ambassador at Large, Vernon Walters, Ambassador to the Vatican, Wilson. But the reporter neglected to mention that the entire Senate Foreign Relations Committee was governed by Roman Catholics as well, especially Joe Biden. Where's he today? Subcommittee on European Affairs, Paul Sabanis, International Economic Policy and Oceans and Environment, John Kerry. Where's he today? Terrorism, narcotics, and international communications was his portfolio then. So, do they control very interesting aspects? Fascinating. And of course, they were bondsmen, as we know. Now, people will start shouting conspiracy. This is not conspiracy, this is fact. This is not conspiracy. Now, let's have a look at some modern people. Leon Panetta. He was the former director of the Central Intelligence Agency. Leon Edward Panetta is an American politician, lawyer, and professor. He served in Barack Obama's administration as director of the Central Intelligence Agency from 2009 to 11, and as Secretary of Defense from 2011 to 2013. In 1956, he entered Santa Clara University. And in 1960, he graduated magna cum laude with a Bachelor of Arts in Political Science. He also received a Juris Doctor from Santa Clara University. He joined the United States Army, etc., etc., etc. He received the Army Commendation Medal and was discharged in 1966 as First Lieutenant. So running these mighty organizations, we have Roman Catholic agents. Al Jazeera says the dangerous rebranding of John Brennan. He's the current director of the CIA. Now, where does he get his training? How does this happen? How can a constitutional law professor and community activist and a Jesuit-trained intelligence analyst with an interest in just war theory so easily distort language, etc., etc.? I'm not really interested in the details. Who controls him? He's Jesuit-trained. Bill Clinton was Jesuit-trained. The CIA, the FBI, to this day, they were founded by agents of Rome, and today, agents of Rome are controlling them today. Nothing has changed.
Hey, Australia. 3, 2, 1, let's go. Make your new love island.
The Tower of Babel. And here you have the Queen of Heaven and her little child, Horus, on the Tower of Babel. Rome makes no doubt, makes no secret of its affiliations. It associates itself with the Tower of Babel. She's the queen of Babel. God divided the nations, and it's been Satan's aim to reunite them in apostasy against God. And we are heading for that final apostasy. The European Parliament building is nothing other than a reconstruction of the Tower of Babel. This was at the London Olympics. There you had the 5 rings of the Olympics, which symbolized the union of the 5 continents. A one-world government. But it's not complete until the capstone comes down on it. And who's the goddess of the night? Isis. And so they planned it precisely according to the astrological and astronomical calendar, so that the full moon would rise and join the rings to complete the pyramids. And whether it's inverted or whether it's upright makes no difference. The one is the male factor, the other one is the female factor. The world is coming to the point when this one world unity, which will be in opposition to God, is coming into effect. This is the journal America, the National Catholic Review. It is a Jesuit journal. So let's ask the Jesuits to explain who the president of the European Council today is. He was educated at the Katholieke Universiteit Leuven, which is dedicated to Mary, the mother of Jesus, under a traditional attribute, the seat of wisdom. We'll have to talk about that. Now let's see what the Jesuit Journal has to say. One interesting thing about Mr. Van Rompuy is his Catholicism, about which he makes no bones. He was educated, drum roll, s'il vous plaît, by Jesuits in Brussels. The top leaders in the world are Jesuits or Jesuit trained.
That's true.
They wield the power. This is the emblem of Georgetown University. This is taken directly from their webpage. The seal of Georgetown University, it bears the founding date, 1789. The university motto, Trac Unum, both into one. And Latin inscription, Collegium Georgio Platanum at Ripas, whatever, which means Georgetown College on the banks of the Potomac in Maryland. This is where the presidents get educated. This is where the legislators get educated. They have the Roman eagle, and it says, both into one. If you check a little bit further on their webpage, they will lie to you, or on other web pages about this, and they will say to you, oh, this is the dividing line between the Jew and the Gentile that has been taken away, and they have been united. Nonsense. This is the union of church and state. The union of church and state. This is what will be achieved whether we like it or not, and it will be under the auspices of the Roman eagle. And that is why there's a holy alliance which was formed between the two, and the eagle forms part of the Pontifex Maximus, a symbol on the very seat of his power. I took that picture in the Vatican on the floor as you enter St. Peter's. And there is the emblem. And this is the symbol of the United States of America, and it has exactly the same thing. Here it says, in Latin, he, God, favored our undertaking and a new order of the ages. You know these things. Here is the symbol of the eagle in Rome, under the papal keys on the coin of the Vatican. And here is the famous eagle as it is in the garden of the Vatican, sculpted by Pope Paul V. Now, this is a statement that some say he never made, but many claim that he did make it. And even if he didn't make it exactly like this, it is found in others of his writings almost like this. So we can say it's quite authoritative. Woodrow Wilson wrote, I'm a most unhappy man. I have unwittingly ruined my country. A great industrial nation is controlled by its system of credit. Our system of credit is concentrated. The growth of the nation, therefore, and all our activities are on the hands of a few men. We have come to be one of the worst ruled, one of the most completely controlled and dominated governments in the civilized world. No longer a government by free opinion, no longer a government by conviction and the vote of the majority, but a government by the opinion and duress of a small group of dominant men. And he said that after he signed into law the Federal Reserve.
Wow.
Now, this is the Globe and Mail business report, 10 September 2013. The CEOs of some of the world's top mining companies did not come to the Vatican to pray. See Pope Francis or traipse through the sweltering halls of the Vatican Museum. They came to discuss ways to make their industry a little bit less devilish. And you have to give the Vatican credit for all-star drawing power. Any mining conference would have been envious of the guest list. Saturday's Day of Reflection with the mining industry, which was organized by the Pontifical Council for Justice and Peace, the Vatican department that deals with earthly matters such as promoting human rights, included the CEOs of Anglo-American, PLC, Rio Tinto, Newmont Mining. These three men alone represented companies with well more than $100 billion in market value. Discussions taking place at the Vatican. Bilderberg, 2013, welcome to 1984. After 59 years of Bilderberg, guests scuttling through the shadows, ducking lenses, etc., here they come. And there is this lady, Kadia, who is the IMF boss today. She's a Bilderberger. In my previous lecture, I showed that the Bilderbergers were formed and started by the Jesuits.
Wow, I never knew that.
Now, here's an interview which is rather fascinating. And this interview, if we can have the sound up in a moment, this interview is with a whistleblower. Now, whistleblowers are causing quite a bit of trouble for the current regimes, and this is no ordinary whistleblower. This was one of the advisory lawyers in the International Monetary Fund. This is one of the whistleblowers who blew the whistle on multi-billion frauds. And eventually, for her whistleblowing, she got a pink slip. And let's listen to what this person, with her insight within the financial systems of the world, has come up with in her thinking.
Hello, I'm Greg Hunter. Welcome to USAWatchdog.com. With us today, a brand new guest. Her name is Karen Hudis. She is an attorney, she is a banker, and she is a whistleblower. Karen Hudis, thank you so much for joining us today from Maryland. Thank you so much. Well, you worked for the World Bank for a better part of 20 years. You are an Ivy League trained attorney. You are with the Ivy League school. I think you went to Yale. You work for the World Bank as a lawyer. You're a banker, and you were a whistleblower inside the World Bank, not just one time, but several times. A crescendo with a big, almost $1 billion, whistleblowing fraud, malfeasance in the World Bank in Indonesia. And for that, you got a pink slip in 2009.
Getting back to the Federal Reserve and the Bank for International Settlements, these groups are in cahoots with the biggest crooks of all, the Jesuits that bought up Bank of America, and they have little secret deals to try to apportion the riches of the world. And in the meantime, all of the countries of the world know that this thievery is going on. We are talking about the biggest thuggery of all, and that is the Jesuits in the Vatican. And let me tell you what I just found out. I always thought that the CIA was the problem and the other intelligence agencies. Guess what? There's a grand intelligence agency that the Vatican puts out, and all of those other crooks are operating under the Vatican intelligence agency.
The money
That's what's going on.
The money is about the control, and the Vatican intelligence agency, the World Intelligence Agency. They're talking about we're fighting over money, over what money we're going to use.
No,
who controls
that's the thing I'm saying, Greg. They're not fighting. They've all agreed. The fighting is what we're led to believe. They're all in cahoots, just like all the banks are in cahoots. All of these intelligence agencies are in cahoots too. For example, people don't know that their IRS revenue is going to the Vatican.
Now, there's a whistleblower, and I don't think she's a fool. I think she saw through it. Pope John the 23rd made the following statement. The mark of Cain is stamped upon our foreheads.
Wow.
Across the countries, our brother Abel was slain in the blood which we drew, and shed tears we caused by forgetting thy love. Forgive us, Lord, for the curse we falsely attributed to their name as Jews. Forgive us for crucifying thee a second time in their flesh, for we knew not what we did.
Wow.
Now, lest I be accused of being an anti-Semite, I am not. Lest I be accused of being an anti-Catholic, I am not.
I am.
I'm not anti-anyone, I'm just pro-Jesus Christ. But he claims the mark of Cain is stamped upon their foreheads. He's just stating a fact, he knows it. They have the mark of Cain. They have the authority to rule, and they are exercising the authority. And what he says is that they slew Abel all over again in the form of the Jews, but they want to be forgiven for that. Does he ask forgiveness for the Inquisition and the slaughter of millions of Christians? No. Because those who reject Christ are part of his mindset. So all that he has done in the statement has said the mark of Cain is upon our forehead, and we welcome into our midst anyone who has the same enmity against Jesus Christ. That's all he's saying. But they're clever. They hide it under this language so that you will not see it. Netanyahu thanks the Pope for Jewish exoneration. So Pope Benedict went a step further and exonerated them from the guilt of the crucifixion. He's very kind. He wields the power. He has the mark of Anu. He can do it. Sunday is our mark of authority. The church is above the Bible, and this transference of Sabbath observance is proof of that fact. Catholic record. A person who violates the sanctity of Sunday is to be punished as a heretic. John Paul II. The EU must keep Sunday, says the Catholic Church, directing its attention against God's law in the public domain, yes or no? Catholic Church and trade unions form holy alliance to enforce Sunday observance. Let me take you down into the bellows of that 33-degree lodge in Washington. And this is Albert Pike's room. He is revered as a god down there. Everything is meticulous. And there on the windows it says, Ordo ab chaos, order out of chaos. We know that Albert Pike planned 3 world wars in a letter to Mancini. We shall unleash the nihilists and the atheists, and we shall provoke a formidable social cataclysm, which in its horror will show clearly to the nations the effect of absolute atheism, origin of savagery, and the most bloody turmoil. Then everywhere the citizens obliged to defend themselves against the minority of revolutionists will exterminate those destroyers of civilization, and the multitude disillusioned with Christianity will receive the pure light through the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine of Lucifer, the destruction of Christianity and atheism, both conquered and exterminated at the same time. Here is the gigantic mural in the United Nations Security Council chamber. And there you see the phoenix rising out of the ashes of a destroyed mankind. Are we heading for the final clash? 2 lines, the rule of law and the rule of the spirit. This is now a definition from Legal Dictionary. The rule of law according to law, rule under law, or rule according to a higher law. The rule of law is an ambiguous term that can mean different things in different contexts. In one context, the term means rule according to the law. No individual can be ordered by the government to pay civil damages or suffer criminal punishment except in strict accordance with the well-established and clearly defined laws and procedures. And in the second context, the term means rule under law. No branch of government is above the law. No public official may act arbitrarily or unilaterally outside the law. In a third context, the term means rule according to a higher law. No written law may be enforced by a government unless it conforms with certain unwritten, universal principles of fairness, morality, and justice that transcend human legal systems. I wonder what that law is. That must be natural law. And who wields natural law? Rome. Rome is the father and the mother of natural law. So she controls all law. She has the mark of Cain. And she says, the sign that I have this authority in the world, a God-given authority, by the way, God permits her to bear that responsibility, is my mark of power. And that is that I changed the Sabbath to Sunday. Now, we've all seen this one before, but I just want to emphasize the words rule of law. Let's hear the sound.
Where institutions of freedom have lain dormant, the United Nations can offer them new life. These institutions play a crucial role in our quest for a new world order, an order in which no nation must surrender one iota of its own sovereignty, an order characterized by the rule of law rather than the resort to force.
Everybody must be subject to the what? The rule of law. And the rule of law is subject to a higher law. And that law is wielded by another authority behind the scenes. That's the legal definition. The only one who has ever laid claim to such a law is the Roman Catholic Church. And so principalities and powers will have to come and pay obedience. And so Obama will go. He was educated at Harvard. If you enter the Harvard Law School, what is the sign that you see there? The sign of honor. So here is the power to rule. Battlefield, U.S. Americans face arrest as war criminals under Army state law. Luke 21:26, men's hearts failing them for fear and for looking after those things which are coming on the earth.
Wow, Lynn, what a coincidence that this scripture's been read. And we were just speaking about that. Wow.
But for the powers of heaven shall be shaken. We are heading for a final cataclysm. Senate approves indefinite detention and torture of Americans. The terrifying legislation that allows for Americans to be arrested, detained, indefinitely tortured, and interrogated without charge or trial passed through the Senate on Thursday. Is it only applicable to Americans, or is the same thing happening to other nations as well? Do they use torture at Guantanamo Bay, yes or no? Yeah. Is it a common known fact? Do they use waterboarding and other methods that we don't know of? Well, why would the US clergy seek release of a Senate report on post 9/11 torture if there weren't torture? And I want to remind you of history. Did the nations in the past employ torture to those who differed from their principles? Yes or no? Did the Assyrians do it? Yes. And if you go down the line, did the Romans do it? Yes. And whenever it came to that point, once they reach a certain point, 70 times 7, when probation closes for them, it ends. But normally these nations became cruel and tortured people. Are they showing pictures of people in terrible...
Okay, guys, last bid.
You're not always ready to be a jack of all trades, but with ANZ, you can be financially ready for business.
And now rushed from the earth, and has opened her mouth to receive thy brother's blood from thy hand. And when thou tillest the ground, it shall not hence... And now rushed from the earth, and has opened her mouth to receive thy brother's blood from thy hand. And when thou tillest the ground, it shall not henceforth yield unto her a strength. A fugitive and a vagabond shalt thou be on the earth. And Cain said unto the Lord, my punishment is greater than I can bear. Is there any sorrow in that? No. He has a problem with the punishment. He doesn't necessarily have a problem with what he did. Behold, thou hast driven me out this day from the face of the earth, and from thy face shall I be hid. And I shall be a fugitive and a vagabond in the earth, and it shall come to pass that everyone that findeth me shall slay me. I'm now an outcast. What am I going to do? Now, God in his foresight sees that the children of disobedience are going to eventually be far more than the children of obedience. Isn't that right? And somebody has to rule. And if he puts the minority in charge of the majority, eventually all the Abels that are there will be slain. Is that a possibility? And so God has to find a solution. Who's going to rule over the children of evil? Who's going to do it? They will slay me. And so God makes a covenant with Cain. And the Lord said unto him, therefore, whosoever slayeth Cain, vengeance shall be taken on him sevenfold. And the Lord set a mark upon Cain, lest any finding him should kill him. Now, there's been a lot of speculation as to what the mark of Cain is, but we only have to look at the words to get an idea as to what the mark of Cain is. The mark, the word, is interesting because it's the Hebrew oath. If you would take it straight into the English, it would be oath, but of course we're not going to do that, lest we get theologically slaughtered. We'll just say that the Hebrew is oath, which means a signal as a flag, a beacon, a monument, a prodigy, an evidence, a mark, a sign, a token. Now, if we go to Exodus 31:13, where we're talking about the children of God, it says, speak thou also unto the children of Israel, saying, verily my Sabbath you shall keep, for it is a sign, and the word there is oath. Same word. Exactly the same word. Between me and you throughout your generations, that you may know that I am the Lord that does sanctify you. Two signs. One, the mark of Cain. The other one, the mark of God's people. The mark of God's people points to the Sabbath. The Sabbath tells you where you come from, and the Sabbath tells you in Deuteronomy that you are redeemed. You have been bought with a price. So here are God's people. They have the oaths of God. They are keeping the commandments of God. They are in the minority. When Cain sinned, one of Adam's rebellious daughters sided with him. I'm speculating, of course. And decided that she was more affiliated to him than to the others, and went with him. If he goes, I go. He must have gotten a wife somewhere, right? And so the family split up. Doesn't say so in the Bible, but it's a logical deduction. And those that fell under the rule of Cain received the mark of Cain, and those that fell under the rule of God had a simple sign of obedience to God's commandments, right from the very beginning. And I think that that is a logical conclusion. So the mark is not some physical stamp or sign that he had. It is a mark of authority, because the Sabbath is a sign of authority. Therefore, the mark of Cain must be a sign of authority. This one acknowledging the authority of God, this one acknowledging no higher authority than himself. So it's two authorities. The one falls subject to God, the other one falls subject to the mark of Cain. So they will set the authority, they will set the tone. And vengeance shall be taken on him sevenfold. Don't mess with Cain. If Cain catches you in a transgression against him, he'll punish you 7 times.
Linda, you only up to the black cube. That was about half an hour ago, maybe even longer. Drag the red line forward so you're caught up.
He has the authority. Don't mess with him. And Cain knew his wife, and she conceived and bare Enoch. And he builded a city and called the name of the city after the name of his son Enoch. So now the children of this...
And that actual city is in South America. It's in there. It really is. Enoch Tutian or something like that. Tootin Enochian or something like that. So this city is in South America.
Disobedience start growing. And I'm sure there were other defectors along the line. And Cain's family grew much faster than that of the Lord's people. Adam and Eve tried their best to stem the tide. So this firstborn of Cain, his name was Enoch, not to be confused with the other Enoch. because this one didn't walk with God. This one started to build cities. And unto Enoch was born Irad, and Irad began Mehujael, and Mehujael Methusael, and Methusael begat Lamech. And the rot sets in. And Lamech took unto him 2 wives. So now we have apostasy increasing. The name of the one was Ada, and the name of the other Zillah. And then it gets even worse. Verse 23, and Lamech said unto his wives, Ada and Zillah, hear my voice, ye wives of Lamech. Hearken unto my speech, for I have slain a man. Here's another murderer in the line of Cain. But he is an inheritor of the authority, because this is going down the sons of Cain. To my wounding, and a young man to my hurt. If Cain shall be avenged 7-fold, truly Lamech 70 and 7-fold. So the rules will get tougher, but not only that. I was interested in this 70 and 7-fold, and I looked for a translation because it's hard to determine what it is. I like the Geneva Bible, and as you know, that is the old Bible, so the spelling looks funny, but if Cain shall be, in the old days that was one word, if Cain shall be avenged 7-fold, truly Lamech 70 times 7-fold, says the Geneva Bible. I like that. 70 times 7. Does that ring a bell? It rings a bell somewhere? Oh. What happened at the end of the 70 times 7 that you find in the book of Daniel? Probation closed for the Jews as a nation. Not as individuals, but as a nation. So if Cain was to have a 7-fold structure, then Lamech would have a 70 times 7 structure, but it would only last until God said, probation for you is closed. Does that make sense? I'm speculating. It's a conspiracy.
Absolutely.
But it does seem that these words are not just arbitrary. Now, let's jump straight into the esoteric world, and let me just make plain again that my sources will be the very best sources for those who want to make them obscure. I will quote from the highest occult sources in the world, and I will quote from encyclicals directly from the Vatican, so that anybody who wishes to say that these are not authoritative had better check them out and see whether it is so. Morals and Dogma, Albert Pike. You know what's fascinating? Is that the esoteric world doesn't deny the Bible. It just twists the Bible. It doesn't deny the chronology of the Bible. The evolutionists deny the chronology of the Bible. The esoteric world knows that the Bible is true. That's fascinating. Now, Morals and Dogma, Albert Pike, he says the following. Enoch. His name signified in the Hebrew initiate or initiator. So he's the initiate of the initiator. The legend of the columns of granite and brass or bronze erected by him is probably symbolical. He's the one who built the city, remember? That of bronze which survived the flood is supposed to symbolize the mysteries of which masonry is the legitimate successor. So irrespective of the stuff in between those 2 points there, we can say, according to the occult world, Enoch is the initiate and the initiator, and Freemasonry is the inheritor of whatever it is that was initiated. Is that correct? Is that what we're saying? Good. So Masonry traces its origin back to Enoch. High Masonry.
Watch carefully.
From the earliest times, the custodian, or Masonry, is the legitimate successor of the Enoch principle. From the earliest times, the custodian and depository of the great philosophical and religious truths unknown to the world at large. Unknown to the world at large. And handed down from age to age by an unbroken current of tradition. Do we have a religious organization that prides itself on its tradition? Embodied in symbols, emblems, and allegories. So they trace themselves back from Enoch, and then they say Enoch walked with God and all these marvelous things. But don't believe everything these people say. Check it out. Do a careful study. So which Enoch are they talking about? Are they talking about the Enoch that walked with God? Or are they talking about the Enoch, the son of Cain? Well, we can find out. Enoch, son of Jared, descended from Adam via the line of Seth. So it's a different line. And he's called in the Bible the seventh generation from Adam. And if we use the chronology from Asher that even the spirit of prophecy used, then Enoch would have been born in the year 3382 BC. That's now the Enoch that walked with God. Pike's book is dated Masonically, and it's dated by Christian reckoning. This is fascinating stuff. It has two dates. One is the Masonic date, and one is the Christian date. And the reckoning in Pike's book to Enoch is given as the year 5860 AM. And if you look that up, it means Anno Mundi, the year of the world. So when did the world as we know it begin, and when did this unbroken line of succession come down the line of history all the way to modern Freemasonry? According to Pike, it all started in the year 5860 Anno Mundi, year of the world. But it also has the normal date in it, and it says the book was written in 1871 AD. All right, so if I want to find out if 5860 Anno Mundi is the same as 1870 AD, then when was it BC? Well, then you have to subtract the one from the other, 5860 minus 1871 to get a BC date from an AD date. You get to the year 3809 BC. So the Masonic calendar starts in 3809 BC. And that is 427 years before the Enoch that walked with God. So the dates in the very high occult writings tell us that the Enoch that they refer to is which one? The Enoch of Cain. So this unbroken line of authority comes all the way from Cain. Now let's read The Secret Doctrine by Blavatsky. Because in the esoteric world, everything is turned around. Good becomes evil and evil becomes good. Let's just check this out once more. Once that the key to Genesis is in our hands, it is the scientific symbolical Kabbalah which unveils the secret. The great serpent of the Garden of Eden and the Lord God are identical. And so are Jehovah and Cain one. So Cain is the God of this world who gave his power to rule to his son, and he dedicated a city to him, and he said there. Now a city also stands for a government, doesn't it? Isn't Babylon called a city? Yes or no? So Babylon is called a city, and Enoch got the power to rule over the city, and the Lord God is the same as Cain. Then it means that Cain gave his power to rule to his son Enoch. And the mark of Cain was transferred, the power and authority to rule, was transferred from Cain to Enoch, and then in an unbroken line all the way through to the modern world, according to them. That Cain, who is referred to in theology as the murderer and the liar to God, Jehovah tempts the king of Israel to number the people, and Satan tempts him to do the same in another place. Jehovah turns into the fiery serpent to bite those he is displeased with, and Jehovah informs the brazen serpent that heals them. These short and seemingly contradictory statements in the Old Testament, contradictory because the two powers are separated instead of being regarded as the two faces of one and the same thing, are the secret doctrine. So good is evil, evil is good. The Lord God is really Cain. So in that sense, Anu would be Cain. He's also the son of Ea, the moon goddess. Fascinating. Ea, Eve. And so there's an element of truth in these old legends. The appellation Satan in Hebrew, Satan, an adversary, from the word Shatana, to be adverse, belongs by right to the first and cruelest adversary of all the other gods, Jehovah. This is the secret doctrine. Not to the serpent who spoke only words of sympathy and wisdom and is the worst even in the dogma of the adversary of men. So the enemy is who?
Jehovah.
The enemy is God. So in the line of Cain, the true God is the enemy. In the line of Cain, the true God is the enemy. And if there is a godly person like Abel, if it is within his power, what will he do to him? He'll kill him. He'll kill him. That's his mindset. He wants to rule. He has the power to rule. He has an authority to rule. He can punish sevenfold, 70 times sevenfold. He can put you into jail and into misery for whatever and keep you there until you rot. He has the power to do it. And he hates the God of heaven. That's his mindset. Now, deception, of course, is something that comes into play as well, because many who are subject to the rule of the Cain stream don't even know that they are part of the Cain stream. And so they are deceived into following this rule, whether they like it or not. Therefore, Jehovah was called by the Gnostics the creator of and one with Ophiomorphos, the serpent or Satan. So you have a reversal, a gospel reversal. Genesis chapter 6, verse 1. Now evil starts increasing on this planet. Cain rules with ruthlessness through his line. And by the time you get to Lamech, it is chaos and oppressive power. You mess with me and my authority, I will sort you out. And it came to pass, when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and the daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God saw that the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. So as I've said before, God's beautiful children go to do shopping in the mall, and there they see the daughters of men with their short little skirts and their tantalizing little ways. And before you know it...
And guys, think about it. I've never heard of a female angel. So was there females in heaven before Adam and Eve was conceived? Because if there wasn't, and the angels only knew men, like the masculine thing, when they seen the pretty earth women, I can understand them being super tempted if that's what happened, because they've never seen a female as far as I'm aware, and now God's created females and they're really beautiful. So yeah,
they intermarry. And the Lord says he will not strive with them forever. Your time shall be 120 years. And there were giants, Nephilim, apostates, not angelic people. That's wishful thinking on their part. No, they were apostates. Nephilim on the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God, the line of the children of Adam through the line of Seth, came unto the daughters of men and bare children to him, the same became mighty men which were of old, men of renown. So you had men who received great honor in the media. When you looked at the television set, the antediluvian set, you saw all the men of great valor and all the rulers, and they were the great philanthropists of the world, the powerful rulers, the presidents, the ones who were making the speeches. And God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thought of his heart was only evil continually. And it repented the Lord that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him at his heart. And so when the 70 times 7 was full, he said, probation for the antediluvian world is over. And he destroys them, except one family. Of course, Noah's family was all perfect, right? No, I think there might have been some daughters there that were married to them. Who knows whether they were daughters of men or daughters of God. And perhaps the line of Cain came along with the ship. And the theology of Cain was in the ship. God is gracious, isn't he? God is gracious. Do we have a parallel anywhere else? Sodom and Gomorrah? Were they all perfect that were saved there? Or do we have Moabites and Ammonites as a consequence?
As soon as you see the lights, you know it's Christmas time. Light up your Christmas with our lowest prices.
So the post-flood apostasy and the rule of Cain resumed then through the lineage of Ham. So the line wasn't actually broken. The apostasy, the great oppression, the great evil was arrested for a while, but it didn't take long before it flourished on the planet again. And finally, we come to the descendants of Ham, and we come to Nimrod. And Flavius Josephus writes of Nimrod. Now, it was Nimrod who excited them to such an affront and contempt of God. He was the grandson of one of Noah's most wicked sons, Ham. Therefore, great-grandson of Noah, a bold man of great strength of hand. He persuaded his people not to ascribe their joys to God, as if it were through his means they were happy, but to believe that it was their own courage which procured that happiness. Do we have that same philosophy today?
Yes.
He also gradually changed the government into a tyranny. He had the same mindset. He had the same mindset, seeing no other way of turning men from the fear of God, but to bring them in constant dependence on his power. He also said he would be revenged on God if he should have a mind to drown the world again, and for that he would build a tower too high for the waters to reach, and that he would avenge himself on God for destroying their forefathers. Enmity towards God, enmity towards anyone who opposes him in this issue.
Wow.
And he begins to rule. He is the legitimate heir then of the power to rule over the children of evil. Well, Masonry actually in its writings says that the Tower of Babel was their enterprise. So if Muslim dogma traces it back to Enoch, then other writers trace it back to Nimrod, but it's the same thing. The one just takes the post-flood reoccurrence, and the other one takes it from the pre-flood. And so the Tower of Babel is depicted as a Masonic enterprise. Arthur Edward Waite, as regards Masonry, Babel, of course, represented a Masonic enterprise. It is well known that the Tower of Babel is one of the most ancient traditions of Masonry. So they don't make any bones about it. In the Masonic quiz book, the question is asked, who was Nimrod? The answer was, he was the son of Cush, and the old constitution referred to as one of the founders of Masonry. And in the scripture, as the architect of many cities, was Enoch an architect of cities? So here you have city dwellers and country mouse. All right, we find at the making of the Tower of Babel, there was masonry. First, much esteemed of, and Nimrod was a mason himself and loved well masons. These are Masonic sources. Now, as we go down through history, we come to the various ruling powers, the superpowers of earth that held sway. And we will find some parallels in all of them. The one that tests authority, you will obey me and not God. Hey, God says, I'll turn your nose around 360 degrees, whether you like it or not. And he will. It's going to happen. So God says, I gave them my Sabbath to be a sign between me and them, that they may know that I am the Lord that sanctifies them. Isaiah 58:13 says, if you turn away thy foot from the Sabbath, from doing thy pleasure on my holy day, and call the Sabbath a delight. I'm not talking about the way the Jews kept the Sabbath, a ritual where you do this and you're not allowed to do that, and you're not allowed to eat egg that was laid on the Sabbath, and you're not allowed to do this, that, and the other, walk so many yards or whatever. No, that's a burden. It says here, call the Sabbath a delight, not the burden. The holy of the Lord, honorable, and shall honor him, and not doing thine own ways, nor finding thine own pleasure, nor speaking thine own words. Then shalt thou delight thyself in the Lord, and I will cause thee to ride upon the high places of the earth, and feed thee with the heritage of Jacob thy father, for the mouth of the Lord has spoken it. He says, if you honor my authority in your life, and you spend it with me, and you allow me to sanctify you, you will be happy, and you will have the heritage of Jacob, which is eternal life. And what about the strangers? Did it apply only to the Jews this Sabbath day? Isaiah 56:6 and 7. All the sons of the stranger that join themselves to the Lord, to serve him and to love the name of the Lord, to be his servants, everyone that keeps the Sabbath. The Sabbath became the sign of your allegiance to the deity called Yahweh. It was the sign. Even then will I bring to my holy mountain and make them joyful in my house of prayer. For mine house shall be called a house of prayer for all people. So the stranger came. Did he have to accept the Sabbath? Yes or no? Sure, he had to accept the Sabbath. Deuteronomy 11:13-20, and it will be for you if you will listen carefully to my commandments, which I command you today. Take heed to yourselves that your heart may not be deceived. The commandments are the law. They're rigid. You cannot change them. And you turn aside and serve other gods and worship them. So is there a possibility that this conflict could arise? Yes or no? Certainly could. Therefore, now listen carefully. You shall lay up these my words in your hearts, talking about the commandments of God, and in your souls, and bind them for a sign upon your hand. Listen carefully now. On your hand, so that they may be as frontlets between your eyes. So where must the commandments of God be placed? On your hand and in your forehead. Wow. Is there a mark of a beast that must be placed on the hand or the forehead? Yes or no? Oh. But the commandments of God must be on your hand and your forehead. Now, the Jews were very clever. They wrote out the 10 commandments on a little plaque and stuck them on the hand and stuck them on the forehead, and the deed was done. I've got the law in my hand, I've got the law in my forehead. Big deal. Does you think that's what God had in mind? That would be so silly, it would be unbelievable. God never had that in mind. What did he have in mind when he said that? He said, tie them to your hand, act accordingly. Put them in there, think accordingly. Doesn't that make sense? It's got nothing to do with an outward sign. God is not silly. And these words which I command you this day shall be in your hearts. That's where he wanted them. I wonder whether they cut it open over here and put the plaque inside there as well. No, they didn't. And you shall carefully teach them to your sons, and you shall bind them for a sign upon your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes here in your cognitive thinking. This is God's law. I will keep God's law. He is my God. I will follow him. That's what it says. Continue in Exodus chapter 13, verse 9. It shall be a sign unto them upon thine hand, and for a memorial between thine eyes, that the Lord's law may be in thy mouth. It's pretty clear. What must be on the forehead and on the hand? The law of God. It's got nothing to do with a barcode from a can of beans or whatever. It's got to do with the law of God that has to be on your hand and that has to be in your forehead. Now, what about that other guy with the cauliflower ears and the buck teeth who takes away the followers of God? Actually, he doesn't have cauliflower ears and buck teeth. He's actually quite handsome. It's quite irritating. But in any case, takes them away and misleads them. Misleads them. And he says, no. My sign, my mark on your forehead or your hand. Well, let's have a look. What was the purpose then of the Sabbath? It was a day of rest. It was a day of blessing. It was a day of peace. It was a sign. It was a memorial to creation. It was a symbol of sanctification. It was a hallowed day, and it was a perpetual covenant. That was what there was. And remember, Mark 2, verse 27, the Sabbath was made for man, and not man for the Sabbath. That doesn't get rid of the Sabbath. It just tells you that man needs the Sabbath. Man needs this communication with his God, and he must know who his God is. The God that we serve is the God of the Sabbath. That's the God whom we serve. Otherwise, who is he? Is it the one of the Friday? Is it the one of the Sunday? Is it the one of the Wednesday? Is it the God of the Hindus? Is it the one of Buddhists? Is it the one of the Shintos? Is it this one? Is it that one? I'll tell you what, it's the God of the Sabbath. Simple as that. That's what the Bible says. Oh, that thou hadst hearkened unto my commandments, and that had peace, then had thy peace been as a river, and thy righteousness as the waves of the sea. Isaiah 48:18. You would know exactly where you stand or where you are. Deuteronomy 5:29. Oh, that there was such a heart in them that they would fear me and keep all my commandments. 9 of them or all of them? All my commandments, always, that it might be well with them and with their children forever. Well, having established that, then why do we keep Sunday? Why don't we keep the Sabbath? Why does the Christian world keep Sunday? Sunday. Let's ask Webster's International Dictionary what it means. Some of the new dictionaries get quite sneaky. You got to watch it. In the old days, they used to define it like this: so-called because this day was anciently dedicated to the sun or its worship. Schaeff's Encyclopedia says Sunday, dies solis of the Roman calendar, day of the sun, being dedicated to the sun, the first day of the week. Most Oxford dictionaries will say Sunday, first day of the week. New Oxford dictionaries will say Sunday, day following Saturday. That's pathetic. That's not a definition anymore. That's a definition in terms of another definition. Doesn't mean anything anymore. But there you have it. That's what it is. It's the day of the sun. It's dies solis of the Roman calendar, the day of the sun, and it's the first day of the week. It's not the 7th day of the week. Sabbath, a Hebrew word signifying rest. Sunday was a name given by the heathens to the first day of the week because it was the day on which they worshipped the sun. John Edie, a Bible Cyclopedia, page 561. You can check it out. I mean, it's all there. The reference are there. Take your ordinary dictionary at home and see what that says. So the Sabbath is not Sunday, it's Saturday. Sunday is the first day of the week. But the Christian world keeps Sunday. Let's have a look at it, at a photocopy, if you like, a photograph of a dictionary. 7th day, Saturday, the 7th day of the week. Saturday, the 7th day of the week. Daniel 7, verse 25.
Thanks,
And he, the little horn, we identified him last night, shall speak words against the Most High, shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and plot to change times and laws, and they shall be given into his hand until a time, times, and a half a time. Now, Revelation 13, verse 7 talks about this beast that has all the attributes of the little horn, and we've already said if it looks like a duck and walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, then it's probably a duck. So this beast is exactly the same power as the little horn power, and we are told that this beast will implement, with the aid of another power, which we will deal with tomorrow night, the mark of this beast. Now, we've already established what God's mark was. What was it? The Sabbath. And where was it to be written? On the forehead and on the hand. Now, it was given unto him to make war with the saints and to overcome them, and the power was given him over all kindreds and tongues and nations. Revelation 13:7. And he causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Fascinating text. Fascinating text. We will deal with this in detail and take it apart. Every aspect of that text we will open up. One little difference between God's mark and the beast mark. And it's just a tiny little difference. It lies over here. It says, all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads. God's was to be in the right hand and in the forehead. God is not satisfied with halfway service, all or nothing. This beast is happy if you have it in your forehead. That is, you think it's right and you act accordingly. But he's also happy if you don't think it's right, if you go along with it because you have no other choice. So act accordingly because he said so, then he also will leave you alone. Does that make sense? As long as you obey him, he doesn't care how, whether you're convinced or not, as long as you obey him. Wow. And if you don't do it, economic boycott. You will not.
Han, that didn't show up on my tablet. I just looked at my chat on, look, I'll show you what I mean. It showed up there, but not on my tablet, so I missed him. I don't even see what he said.
Be able to buy or sell. We'll freeze your bank account. We'll freeze it. And say that you have this mark or the name of the beast, stands for its character, or the number, and we'll be dealing with that as well. Now let's have a look at the Roman Decretalia.
Okay, Sex Chat 69 site. Yeah, throw him in the hiding. Han, that didn't show up on my chat, so I would have got it otherwise.
No.
Save 20% off store-wide during Highgrove Bathroom Spring Sale. Sale ends October 30.
Keep your super balance pumped with profits that go to members, not shareholders. Learn more now.
Now this comes from a Roman Catholic source, Decretal de Translat Episcop. He, the Pope, can pronounce sentences and judgments in contradictions to the rights of nations, to the law of God and man. He's a mighty man. He's mightier than God or any nation on earth. He can free himself from the commands of the apostles, he being their superior, and from the rules of the Old Testament. He can do whatever he likes. We read further. The Pope has the power to change times, to abrogate laws, and to dispense with all things, even the precepts of Christ. So no matter what the old husband said, I'm the new husband around here. You want to listen to your previous dad, you'll listen to me. Have we got this other guy around? Yes or no? We have him around. There he is. Let's see what he says. 2 Thessalonians 2:3-4. Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin, which is transgressing of the law, will be revealed, the son of perdition, who opposes and exalteth himself above all that is called God. He's the other guy. And his day is coming when his nose will be twisted 360 degrees, not by me or by any man, but by God. Without human hands, the Bible says. Pope Nicholas quoted in Facts for the Time, the Pope's will stands for reason. He can dispense above the law and of wrong make right by correcting and changing laws.
Wow.
He's a powerful guy. He can do whatever he likes. Ask the Catholic Church, which is the Sabbath day. It says Saturday is the Sabbath day. Your dad said keep Saturday. But I'm telling you no visitation on that day. Then why do you observe Sunday instead of Saturday? Why? Because I'm the new authority in your life, and we observe Sunday instead of Saturday because we, the Catholic Church, transferred the solemnity from Saturday to Sunday. This is not just any source. This is the Convert's Catechism of Catholic Doctrine, 1957. That's pretty straight, out of the horse's mouth. This is the new boyfriend. And he says, you will not listen to your dad, you'll listen to me, because I said so. So what is he attacking? Isn't he attacking the authority of God? You cannot attack the authority of God on the strength of any other commandment except the Sabbath. You can only attack the authority of God on the strength of the Sabbath, because that is what determines the authority. So what is the mark of the beast then? We have a beast. We have a beast that says, you will accept my mark, and you'll have it on your hand or your forehead. We have a seal of God, which is a mark which says, you will keep the commandments of God on your hands and on your forehead. Whoa, we're coming to an impasse. There's no compromise here. What does the beast say? What is its mark? This is the Catholic record, September 1, 1923. They say, Sunday is our mark of authority.
Wow.
So what is the mark of the beast then? What does it say? It says Sunday. The church is above the Bible. Wow. I'm the new boyfriend. You don't listen to the rules of your dad. You listen to me. And this transference of Sabbath observance is proof of that fact. Catholic record, there they say it. So we have two marks on this earth, and the choice is ours. Either we obey God, or we obey the new boyfriend. That's it. So Satan has attacked the Sabbath because it is the seal of God. It affects the authority of God. Let's have some more quotes. Catholic World, March 1894. She took the pagan Sunday and made it the Christian Sunday, and thus the pagan Sunday, dedicated to Baal, that's Baal, became the Christian Sunday, sacred to Jesus.
Wow.
Interesting. Second one, Faith of Our Fathers, Cardinal Gibbons. Of course the Catholic Church claims that the change was her act, and the act, and he reiterates it, is a mark of her ecclesiastical power. She says she's mightier than God in this issue. I don't care what laws God made, you will listen to me. This is real arrogance. The Bible says, remember that thou keep holy the Sabbath day. The Catholic Church says, no. That's pretty straight. Who's this speaking? Oh, it's Father Enright, writing in the American Sentinel. This is the Catholic Church spokesman. He says, the Bible says so, but the Catholic Church says no. By my divine power, I abolish the Sabbath day and command you to keep holy the first day of the week. And lo, the entire civilized world bows down in reverent obedience to the command of the Holy Catholic Church. Isn't that arrogance beyond measure? It is so arrogant, freaks me out. By my divine power? Well, if that's their divine power, then it must be a different divine power to God's divine power, right or wrong. There's another God on earth who sets himself up in the temple of God, claiming to be God. So we have two that we are serving. Of course, the Catholic Church is not really God. It must have another power behind it. And the Bible says, and the dragon gave him his seat and power and great authority. Those are very sad words, and I don't say them flippantly. Catechismus Romanus, Pope Pius 1566, commanded by the Council of Trent, it pleased the Church of God that the religious celebration of the Sabbath day should be transferred to the Lord's Day.
Okay, Lynn, good night.
over and over.
I'm out in 10 minutes myself anyway.
They say, I was in the Spirit on the Lord's Day, Revelation 1:10. They say, well, the Lord's Day was Sunday. It doesn't say so. It says, I was in the Spirit on the Lord's Day. It doesn't say what day it was. Only the Bible can say which is the Lord's Day. And there it is, Isaiah 58:13. If thou turn thy foot away from the Sabbath, from doing thy pleasure on my holy day, and call the Sabbath a delight, the holy of the Lord. So which is the Lord's Day according to the Bible? The Sabbath, not Sunday. So I was in the Spirit on the Lord's Day. It doesn't really cut any ice. What about this one? Therefore the Son of Man is Lord also of the Sabbath. Does that do away with the Sabbath or establish who is in authority when it comes to the Sabbath? By the way, who created this world? Was it the Father or was it through the Son? It was through the Son. You go and read John chapter 1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Everything that was created on this world was created through Him and for Him. By His word it stands. So Jesus is Lord of the Sabbath. Catholic Press, Sydney, August 25, 1900. Sunday is a Catholic institution and its claims to observance can be defended only on Catholic principles. These are all Catholic quotes. From the beginning to the end of scriptures, there is not a single passage which warrants the transfer of the weekly public worship from the last day of the week to the first. Wow. They are so straightforward on this. You may read the Bible from Genesis to Revelation and you will not find a single line authorizing the sanctification of Sunday. The scriptures enforce the religious observance of Saturday. James Gardner Gibbons, The Faith of Our Fathers. The Catholic Church is throwing out the gauntlet and saying, there, take it or leave it. Choose. Wow. The Christian Sabbath is to this day the acknowledged offspring of the Catholic Church, as spouse of the Holy Ghost, without a word of remonstrance from the Protestant world. Catholic Mirror, September 23. So they say to the Protestants, you say you're Protestants, why you obey us then? If you obey us, then you're ours, whether you like it or not. They're so arrogant. Chancellor of the Archdiocese of Baltimore, replying for the Cardinal in a letter dated February 10, 1920, if Protestants would follow the Bible, they should worship God on the Sabbath day. In keeping the Sunday, they are following a law of the Catholic Church. This is the Catholic Church speaking. John Gibney Shea, American Catholic Quarterly Review, Protestantism in discarding the authority of the Roman Church has no good reason for its Sunday theory and ought logically to keep Saturday as the Sabbath. Not the creator, this is really arrogant, not the creator of the universe in Genesis 2, 1 and 3, but the Catholic Church can claim the honor of having granted man a pause to his work every 7 days. This is so arrogant, it blows my mind. This is unbelievable. This one was made not in the Middle Ages, this was made in 1969. Reason and common sense demand, and this one should really clinch it. Reason and common sense demand acceptance of one or the other of these alternatives, either Protestantism and the keeping holy of Saturday, or Catholicity and the keeping holy of Sunday. Compromise is impossible. There you go. Catholic Mirror, December 23, 1893. There's the battle line. If you obey God, you keep which day? Saturday. If you obey the Catholic Church, you keep Sunday. That's what they're saying. So if you're a Protestant, but you're keeping Sunday, you're really obeying who? You're obeying the Pope. That doesn't mean that Protestants out there who have never heard this information now have the mark of the beast. They don't. Because God is judging them according to the light that they have. But this issue is going to become prominent very, very soon. Because the present Pope has asked for worldwide Sunday legislation. And your president had said, we want to implement his teachings. That's interesting. I'll show it to you still. I'll show it to you. So now, why do Protestants keep on keeping Sunday? Well, what do they say? Do they know this or don't they know this? Yes, they know it. Yes, they know it. Let's have it run through them quickly. The Episcopals say, Is there any commandment in the New Testament to change the day of weekly rest from Saturday to Sunday? None. Manual of Christian Doctrine. That's their big writing. We have made a change from seventh day to the first day, from Saturday to Sunday, on the authority of the one holy Catholic and Apostolic Church of Christ. Why we keep Sunday? That's the Episcopal Church. Well, they're so near to the Catholics, it's just sort of a hiccup between them. But they say, they know, but they keep Sunday. All right? What about the other Protestant groups? The Lutheran Church, we observe the Lord's Day, Sunday, is founded, or the observance of the Lord's Day, Sunday, is founded not on any command of God, but on the authority of the church. This is the Augsburg Confession. This is the central document for Lutheranism in the Catholic Sabbath Manual, Part 2, Section 1. They know it. All right? What about the Presbyterians? The change of the day to be observed from the last day of the week to the first day is no record, no express command authorizing the change. This is the Christian Sabbath in our rights, one of their spokespersons. Fine. What about the Methodists? Take the matter of Sunday. There is no passage telling Christians to keep that day or to transfer the Jewish Sabbath to that day. Christian Advocate, July 2, 1942. So the Methodists know it. Oh, what's going on here? What about the Congregationalists? It's quite clear that however rigidly or devoutly we spend Sunday, we are not keeping the Sabbath. There's not a single sentence in the New Testament to suggest that we incur any penalty by violating the supposed sanctity of Sunday. This is the Ten Commandments by Dr. Dale. All right, that's the Congregationalists. Is there anybody out there? Hello, Anglicans? Many people think that Sunday is the Sabbath. But neither in the New Testament nor in the early church is there anything to suggest that we have any right to transfer the observance of the seventh day of the week to the first. The Sabbath was and is Saturday, not Sunday. Reverend Lionel Beard, Church of the People. There we go. Well, what about the Baptists? There was and is a commandment to keep holy the Sabbath day, but that Sabbath was not Sunday. There is no scriptural evidence of the change of the Sabbath institution from the seventh day to the first day of the week. Is this anybody speaking? Oh no, this is Hiscox. He's the author of the Baptist Manual. He should know. So they all know. Every single one of them knows. Here's another one. Reverend Philip Carrington, Anglican Bishop, Quebec. He sent them all in a scurry saying outright that there was nothing to support Sunday being kept holy. He definitely told a church meeting in this city of straight-laced Protestantism that tradition, not the Bible, had made Sunday the day of worship. Toronto Daily Star. So tradition, pagan tradition, introduced by Rome, kept it. Now what does the Lord say about tradition? Well, let's read that. Almost all churches throughout the world celebrate the sacred mysteries, the Lord's Supper, on the Sabbath of every week. Yet the Christians, and now note this, of Alexandria and at Rome, on account of some ancient tradition, have ceased to do this. This is ecclesiastical history. Now, Alexandria is the one where all the pagan doctrines were introduced. This is where the Sadducees learned that there was no resurrection, but that when you go to heaven, you go and sit on Abraham's lap. And Jesus said, hey, what are you teaching there? There's no such thing. So Alexandria and Rome are the seat of paganism. Alexandria taught ancient Egyptian Gnostic mysteries and based on Kabbalism and Gnosticism, ancient tradition. Well, Catholic record says Sunday is founded not on scripture but on tradition and is a distinctly Catholic institution. We will deal with that in some astounding detail, what paganism has done and how occultism has controlled some of these decisions. The New Testament makes no